Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 587, recorded live bright and early on the morning of January 19th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have Strimtom.
Good morning, Patrick. How are you doing today?
Lousy, but we'll get into that in a minute. And Nimvind.
Merry Nimbus.
Welcome, guys. Thanks for getting up early with me today. A couple of production notes before we get in. This show's going to feel a little weird for a couple of reasons. One, last week we recorded our topical series for what was supposed to be this week and the week after. We were talking about 2019 in review. And during that time frame, I, of course, said something incredibly stupid of Lamani probably won't be out for another week or two, meaning next week or the week after. And, of course, then it came out this week. So we're going to, split that recording series up a little bit, which, of course, will mess with my numbering. But Update 45 Preview 1 came out on Lamani this week, so we're going to talk about that. And we will not be airing the next portion of the 2019 Year in Review show because, let's face it, 2019 has already happened, and nothing that's going to change in the next 2 weeks. So we're going to talk about Update 45 Preview 1. The other fun thing today is I experimented with shoving things in my eye, so I can't really read the show notes. So these guys are going to help me out with that part of it. And so we'll start with the screenshot of the week. Strimtom, would you be so kind as to read this screenshot of the week?
Absolutely. So Nimvind adventures in Wayloon in our 447th DDO screenshot of the week. So thanks, Nimvind, for sending in this week's screenshot. I always liked the Old Stone Hall. I think it looks really oppressive, and the fact that he's standing there with a really dark looking outfit, almost like he's stepping right out. That looks really cool.
I always like when they tell me where they are, so I don't have to guess. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website, DDOcast.com. We also have a calendar. Shows are usually available a few days after recording. We will have a show next weekend, or we should have a show next weekend, and all of that fun stuff. On the show this week, like I said, we're going to talk about Update 45 Preview 1. We're also going to do things a little bit out of order. The game news is basically what we're going to talk about. So we're going to do the community news and the sales first. And I can remember that the bravery bonus this week through today is 5% raid XP.
It's a raid buddy bonus, actually.
Is it actually? Okay, I was wondering.
It's a raid buddy bonus, but it wasn't labeled as a raid buddy bonus.
I was like, please tell me that this is actually 5% per other player in your raids.
Because it's a weird kind of bonus. It's like, here's 5% raid XP.
Yay! I mean, I guess you could go run Shroud a few times and level up a character that way. I mean, there's a lot of XP in that in Shroud. I mean, there's actually
XP in that Shroud.
There's a couple of raids. I mean, even Too Hot to Handle, I think, has a pretty decent XP if you can complete it.
Oh yeah, all the raids most of the raids give decent XP, except for I think just the Ravenloft ones. You just got to beat them.
Yeah. Well, other than Too Hot to Handle, that's not too terribly much to ask, but it's definitely kind of a weird one, right? So, and then let's see, someone else is gonna have to read the Nimvind, why don't you read us the store sales for the week?
Whoops. Sorry, I have a hotkey issue.
No worries, I'll just take it. So the sales this week are for Adventuring and Advancing. So you get 30% off select adventure packs, Quest XP elixirs, now through January 23rd. And on top of that, there's the weekly coupon of the week, where you can use coupon code PICKME to get 10 plus 2 Thieves tools added to your inventory. So when you have that situation where you go to pick a lock or something as a rogue and you're like, oh, whoops, forgot to buy tools, don't worry, the store's got you covered this week.
The first time.
The first time, yeah, and then you forget to buy tools again, and it goes down
Yeah.
again.
Not the most exciting freebie of the week, to be sure. um, and then that should take us into the Chronicles, right?
Yes. So then, under the for the Chronicle, there is the community spotlights this week. So the High Lords of Malkir have announced their 2020 Teaching Raid series for new players starting this Saturday. So you can be able to find a link inside the Chronicle to learn more. So you can join them starting on January 11th on Sarlona for Legendary Shroud, which is really exciting.
We
Psycho
should we
Blonde
should
is
actually
working on.
mention
Oh,
really
go ahead.
quick. This Chronicle was released on Monday. It was
Yes, this is an old
supposed to
Chronicle.
have been released on the Friday before,
Yes.
but didn't.
Did we
Which is
get a
why
second Chronicle last week? I don't think we did.
we did. Yeah, it came out. It should be in the show notes after this one, but we did.
Oh yes, we did
got
get a
2 this
second.
week,
We did
yeah.
get a second one. Okay, yes. I missed that one because I was thinking about the first Chronicle this week.
Cordovan must have been busy.
Probably.
He was busy. He was definitely busy.
Was it Strimtom's fault? Or was that the
Only a
week
little.
before?
Psycho Blonde is working on getting DDO horse races on Twitch. So check her out for some horse racing news. And the DDO Player News kicks off 2020 with a review of 2019. So you'll be able to find that out in the Chronicle. Under the guild hall for last week's Chronicle, Legends Under the Mountain is level 64 guild on Sarlona that plays most evenings at Eastern Time. And the guild is looking for new and veteran players to join them for no pressure gaming. So be able to find more if you're playing on Sarlona, look for Legends Under the Mountain if you want a guild like that. And of course, as always, if you want to get your guild featured, you can always contact Standing Stone Games with the subject Guild Hall via email. So you just email contact at Standing Stone Games and get your guild featured with the subject line Guild Hall. As far as the fan site news goes, DDOCast showed up on last week's Chronicle, reviewing Update 44. So you can listen to it, obviously, on the DDOCast website. YouTube is also home to many different DDO video makers. So you've got Joe Gamer helping out with inquisitive builds, Force Gamer, Hype's Soric DPS, and Squishy Caster doing some quests inside Sharn. If you like live content, the DDO stream is also your place to go, where you can find DDO live streamers for Twitch. Shoemaker last week was talking all about the wiki. Alex and Lynn were doing some heroic questing, and Baklagor gets real snowy, although I did not know which snowy area of DDO he's going into.
There's like 3, right?
Yeah. You got like Stormhorns and some other places.
Arsa
Korthos.
And then also on Twitch, you have me, Strimtom, feeling terror. I don't know what that's about. I should have clicked it. I'm not sure what that's about, but I hope it's okay. Ivan Minikowski is raiding, and Planky gets all inquisitive. As well,
It would be funny to read your name and there's like he dies and you're like, no, I didn't die yet. I didn't want to find out how I died.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what that's about.
Maybe it's about you having to go play with a laser puzzle again.
Oh no, not the flashback. And then finally, the Damsels of DDO keep on borderlanding, and you can check out their latest show on their site.
Did you skip the comment for this one?
The comment of the week?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Did I? I don't think so. I read the whole thing.
I don't remember you talking about it. Is that the Featherfall one?
What is the best thing about Featherfall? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I just remember that was this one or the one before.
Well, what is the best thing about Featherfall?
And then there's what kind of footwear does DDO need?
I think that's what this one was.
That's this week's. There you go. Yeah. What kind of footwear does DDO need? Was this one? Was last week's, and then the Featherfall was next week's.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. Footwear. You need flip flops. There's a lot of sand, a lot of beaches, and all sorts of different places, and there's no flip flop a piece of equipment. Tell you what.
I'm sure I'd want to go anywhere in DDO without closed-toed shoes. All of those beaches are covered in, weapon bits and sharp, pointy objects.
See, when I'm playing DDO, most of the time I'm in socks, but sometimes I'm in my Boots of the innocent. No, no, it's okay. Yeah, no. Sometimes I wear flip flops. Sometimes I wear shoes if I just came back from the store. But most of the time, I'm in my socks.
I said I'm going with monster feet slippers.
Monster feet slippers. I was like slippers that have like a head on them or something.
No, like they're
Oh
monster
no, like
feet.
monster feet, like dragon feet or something.
Or like, so as a kid, I had, when I was really little, my dad actually just told me this story maybe like a week before this came out. But so I got this pair of monster feet slippers when I was like 2. And I actually remember them, seeing them around the house later. But think of like Sullivan, kind of blue, hairy, with like fake toes, like pointy toes. Something like that. That would be good, right? Kitty slippers.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I used to have these slippers where it was Homer Simpson's head, and you put your foot in his mouth, and they were so warm and toasty.
That's awesome. DDO does name themed slippers.
Yeah, see that?
I would buy that merch
100.
if DDO came out with merch. I told this to Cordovan. I would buy it. I wouldn't need to go to the mall for clothes. I would just buy DDO clothes all the time.
Yeah, there are unfortunately copyright issues with them doing that. They don't have a license to sell D&D themed merchandise.
Then sell online merchandise.
That's still selling merchandise.
Just says the word online on it.
Yeah, just no Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh man.
That'd go very well.
So to continue on with the Chronicle, Cordovan is joined by Strimtom to chat with Steelstar during this week's weekly Wednesday lunchtime live stream. It was
Congratulations on your
2 weeks
award.
ago. Yes, thank you. I did get the Your Neat award for the top Twitch clip.
Do you have that hanging somewhere?
I have yet to frame it, but I have it, and it will be hanging up once I set up my new place after I move.
Nice.
So it's going to be pretty exciting. And unfortunately, last week was the final week to turn your Festival coins to the Festival Jester. So hopefully you got your coins in. I believe this actually came out after
you could
Jester. Yeah, after
Yeah,
you could already
I
do
think
that. So
so.
it was fortunate.
Oops.
Well, what are you going to do?
Imagine all the people that just found out.
And they're like, no.
Hey, I mean, I forgot to give the reminder to do that. But we did remind people. We did tell people the dates earlier in the show, so maybe we got most people. I mean,
Yeah.
the cookies are not game breaking by any stretch of the imagination. So
I was reminding people a lot because I've been making an attempt to collect 20,000 sun flasks, and I've been farming them out from the community because it's a lot for one man to do, and people have been very generous sending them to me. But see, pretty much the only way to get sun flasks. It's a lot of sun flasks.
You can get them from
It's
the Daily
7
Dice.
character
I get
banks
them
worth.
remarkably frequently. It's a little annoying, actually.
Moving on to this week's DDO Chronicle. It starts out with Strimtom sits down with Steelstar to delve deep into our new class, The Alchemist. There's a 35-minute interview video about that on YouTube there if you want to learn more about The Alchemist after listening to this. Eva266 has created an equipment guide for leveling. So you can find some good information there. And Psychoblonde teaches the Cavern of Koromar. Caverns of Koromar. And of course, always, if you want to nominate a player, make sure you do send an email to contact@standingstonegames.com with the subject line player spotlight.
Meaning they need more player spotlights.
Absolutely. Find your favorite players. DDO is a small community, and we need to showcase what people are making if somebody makes some good stuff. So if you find somebody makes good YouTube videos or guides or anything else, make sure you give them a shout out. I'm sure it'll help. Chronicle's pretty big. As far as Guildhall goes, with the next hardcore season approaching, so kind of dropping some hints about hardcore season 2, if you haven't heard about that. Some people may be looking for a guild for Hardcore League, so make sure to check out the recruitment forums. And also, if you have any guilds you want to recommend for the Guildhall, get your guild featured, make sure you email contact@standingstonegames.com because they want to show off your guilds. And the Chronicle comment of the week is, what is the best thing about Featherfall? For me, it's the feather effect that shows up when you cast it. Feathers falling down. I love that. I think it's great. It's like a real life magic trick. Like if you could just like suddenly make feathers fall from the sky.
Mhm. Given the world that we live in, it's not that big of a magic trick to make feathers fall from the sky. I mean, some people make icebergs and lightning strikes come from the sky indoors and stuff. So but I'm going with you can quote use movie quotes like "Washes, I'm a leaf on the wind." Nice quotable thing to do. Nimvin, what do you got?
Probably the not taking damage when you land at level 1.
Very practical.
Oh yeah.
And like freaking, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced with Featherfall is hitting a nice maxed out sprint boost right before I jump. And I just become this incredible athletic Olympic long jumper.
Going to any distance, yeah.
I feel like I can like jump across the Underdark map sometimes.
Someone did it across the Veil, which I think is still the longest in linear distance jump that at least anyone's posted and recorded.
I'll have to go check that out.
You need an
This was a
evil.
long while ago. Like I don't even
Yeah,
think
but
Stormhorns was out at the moment. I think the only reason you can't
that
do
would be a big feather fall.
well,
We
but
should.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure one if anyone like bothered to see if they could beat that distance and measure it and that kind of a thing. I'm also not entirely sure if there's enough room to travel. Might be kind of the trick, but there probably is. I think if you took off from where that the dragon is below breaking the ranks and kind of went all the way towards lines of supply, you could probably do it.
That should be like the weak Twitch streamer challenge. Try to make a high jump clip.
That's a great idea. This
Well,
is a great
you
idea.
also have to take into account speed, right? Because you can fall farther if you have a faster speed.
Yeah.
Mounts take care of that pretty much.
I guess that's true. That would kind of level the playing field and also make it likely. You could probably actually jump from that spot near Rainbow in the Dark now and get. You might be able to make it to Coalescence Chamber.
Maybe. I don't know. To look into that.
We should just issue this challenge.
Yeah, definitely record yourself going to get the biggest jump distances you possibly can, and then use the hashtag DDOcast jump on Twitter and post your clips. And maybe somebody will review them, but you can feel really good about it. We'll take a look. So Fansite News, DDOcast Reviews 2019. Click here to watch or listen. Yeah, part 1. And you said part 2 is not going to be a thing?
Oh, we're gonna do it. It's just not gonna be. I figure with all the stuff we're gonna talk about today, I'm not gonna tack it on to the end of this.
Okay. DDO Players reviews the past year, so it's the same note before. And then DDO Stream is a great place to find people streaming DDO on Twitch. So you can find some other fun DDO streamers like Doug Lindauer, Brock and Friends, and D&D Night, which I believe is still Sundays, I think.
Sundays, 7 p.m. Eastern. This week, Jerry is kicking off, I think, a 3-part campaign.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in it.
You're in all of them. I'm not shocked by this.
I'm an up and coming, personality, so I like to throw my name in everywhere.
That's it. You got to get your finger in every pie.
Mm-hmm.
Also on Twitch, Samius Grobo follows the noob, Strimtom heads to Lemania, and Ivo Minikowski runs Reaper 4. Over on YouTube, Force Plays has a Firestork build guide, Noah solos an invitation to dinner, and Junie kills dragons in a montage. Ooh, that sounds exciting. I love montage videos.
There should be more DDO montage videos.
Yeah, I'm definitely not ashamed to say I used to watch tons of Call of Duty montage videos when I was younger, and I don't know, I've fallen in love with the genre for games. So update 45 is coming up soon, and so there's been some changes to what's coming to the game on Lemania, and we'll talk about those soon. But there's going to be it's very exciting what's coming out. On top of that, Cordovan also checks out The Alchemist on Lemania. So if you want to see Cordovan's take on that, it's in the DDO Chronicle. And big news, so the weekly restarts are now going to be happening on Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays. So the game will be down usually for about an hour and a half or so. Used to happen on Tuesdays, and now it will be happening on Wednesdays.
And we talked about this last week that they're going back to once a week, so they can collect data that they need to continue improving game performance.
Yes. On that, Axel's DDO channel has a bunch of videos. They're going to be talking about the update 45 Lemania preview. So if you want to make sure you're keeping up to date with update 45 and what's coming out, actually check out his YouTube channel.
I think he's got like 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, already.
Yeah.
The guy works fast. And then, do you have any DDO Cusplat news?
We played this week. We're off this coming week, and then we'll be back the week after that. So was that January 28th?
Okay, January 28th.
Whatever that Wednesday is. Of that, the Wednesday near or on the 28th.
And we do have a lightning post here. So from Syrian, and they say, in the discussion of Tiefling, I feel they completely missed it though. I do not think there's anything that any race that offers any benefit close to 8% fire crit chance and 4% all spell crit chance. Is it just unbelievably powerful for any damage spellcaster? Want to make a Tiefling Warlock? Go Fiend. It's probably the strongest race. Sorcerer, Fire Sorcerer. Tiefling is the best. Tiefling is the strongest race. It's just very niche to what builds strongly benefit from it. It's an interesting question. One of the things I think a lot of people get bogged down by is looking at just one single stat. But it's right there. 8% fire crit chance. That's pretty big for a spell kind.
If you're using fire.
If you're using fire.
I think that's a comment to our year in review because I remember reading this. I believe that we've covered that in the tiefling discussion. Like, there's no question about it when it comes to caster specifically. Any build that has to do with spell power, tiefling is going to be really awesome. Get with the spell crit stuff, all this energy resist too that you get from the tree, but it's a very niche. I agree. Like I wouldn't. I mean, it's plausible to make a tiefling paladin, but like, why? You know what I mean?
There's perhaps better options, to be sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at it a bunch, and I definitely think that if you're going to max out your damage, there's no question that Tiefling is going to be the right way to go. But some considerations, especially for Sorcerer, I mean, Dragonborn gets you a lot more base health and a lot more defense, as well as DCs. And if you're playing as a character who's, maybe you don't have as many lives, you care less about crit chance and more about staying alive in quests. And even something like Paladin is not too bad. The extra resist is really nice on a Paladin, and they actually get the Hellish Rebuke, which as a sorcerer you don't really want people to be hitting you, but have the effect reflect back on them. But as a Paladin, that's just kind of the game. That's what happens. People hit you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's there definitely are some good options. I can get behind that they're very powerful, but there's other races come into play. I mean, it's not like Halfling or something. Yeah, they're pretty good.
You know what's an interesting thing I do sometimes when I have to, or it comes to it? A half-elf warlock dilettante makes a very interesting evoker because it adds that extra fire damage to all your spells. Even your dancing ball starts applying fire damage.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I killed people with charm monster sometimes with a half-elf. It's interesting.
Very cool. So with that being said, it looks like we're moving on to Lemania discussion.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Hold
so
on to your hats, kids.
It's pretty exciting. Update 45 is previewing a lot of different things. So the super quick breakdown, there's a new class coming out, which is exciting, the Alchemist. There's Epic Catacombs and Epic Delaris Tomb being added to the game. as well as revamping the heroic loot. And on top of that, you have two-handed fighting changes, which is changing how two-handed fighting works entirely. Adjustments to ranged combat. Uh, there's Knight of the Chalice changes, which is receiving a large boost to Paladin. And then on top of that, changes to stealth mechanics, as well as changes to tank mechanics and a rework of the Sunder effect. So there's a lot of changes coming out in this patch.
Not so much tank mechanics though, right? It's kind of
Well, it's
more
moving around of health points.
yeah.
And it's gonna. A lot of people have been playing the same tank builds for a long time, and probably since at very least since Renegade Mastermaker came out, and there's probably going to be a lot of rerolls after update 45. But the important
Talk
thing,
about
and the
that
super
when we get there.
yeah, super important note. A lot of people feel that things might be tweaked a tiny bit, but that once something hits Lemania, the design is already set in stone and will never change. But we have a post from Linabel saying that that's not true, and that saying stuff like that makes it hard to get good feedback because they've already announced significant changes to many of the things that have been written up in the preview, like Dance of Death, Archer's Focus, or Bow Combat. So just keep in mind that, especially when they do Lemanias, try to keep your feedback focused on what you think needs to change, and that way you can help make the game better, because that's all they're trying to do with these changes is make a positive adjustment.
Which may seem kind of weird when they're decreasing damage from your favorite build and whatnot, but I mean, they are trying to make it better. I don't know. I put that in there because I was getting really frustrated with reading a lot of comments that were along the lines of, you guys hate the game, you're just trying to like bait and switch things, and there was a lot of critique, but with no feedback, workable feedback on it a lot.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
Yeah.
and then they would say that I'm not interested in giving feedback anymore because you don't listen, you don't change things. And they do, right? Like, just because I think some people, not all, but I think some of these people get caught up in this aspect of, the thing that I don't like that you're doing is nerfing my favorite build, and you didn't unnerf that, so you don't listen to any feedback. Well, they do. Like, there is demonstrable changes that they make every iteration because of player feedback. So
Absolutely.
I don't know. I just got kind of frustrated with that and wanted to speak to that a little bit. Now, that's not to say that they don't, like, there's feedback that they get that they don't use. But I don't know. I kind of feel like there's some of it, like, people like, hey, you're not changing this, and I don't like this feedback. Then they'll say, hey, we posted this already that we are going to change that. Like, I don't mind that so much because I don't just like expect people to read all of the forums. I don't. I just read,
Exactly. It's
I
hard
just
to
read
keep track of everything.
Yeah.
things are changing pretty fast. It'd be nice. I mean, they could do a little bit of work to maybe update some of their posts to keep track of that kind of stuff. But, like, if you're just gonna complain about that you don't like it and you're not gonna provide actionable feedback, I'm not. I don't know what you're expecting out of this. And some people pointed out that they're cynical from previous years, and, well, sure, but this is not that, and these people are not all those people, right? Like, the people have changed too. So,
Yeah,
but
sometimes you just got to let it go,
well, I think a lot of what it is people focus in on the thing that they care about, right? So if you, in this iteration, right, like, if your big thing is range combat and you love being range combat and inquisitive and being super powerful, and you're not really going to care that, oh, they are going to reiterate and change some things about two-handed fighting, right? Like, you don't play two-handed fighter. Why do you care about that? So I think some people get caught up in that as well. So
I think it's just proper communication when you just, like, you can't just be like, no, like no, why, like, communicate what exactly is making you frustrated, and that way it can at least be read. If it doesn't take into account, like, so what, you stood, it's still in the ether, right? You need to give them the feedback, because one, it's just proper communication in a relationship, which the player base to the devs is a form of communal relationship. So you at least owe them an extra words than this is stupid. Like, tell us why. Tell and see what can be done. If nothing can be done, at least they know that that's a thing that people care about. Because I remember hearing, oh, like we're probably not going to revisit doing Cobalt race because it's unpopular. Well, I know a lot of people who want Cobalt races, so
I do.
those people just need to speak up so the devs know, right? So it's just like it's as simple as if you want it, if you dislike something, even during not Lamania, post about it, talk about it, start a conversation. We can make this a better game for everyone, as long as we just keep our cool and have adult
Conversation.
shares. Yeah,
Yep.
conversation's huge.
There were several times that I saw, and Linabelle I thought was doing an admirable job of responding to these people and saying, hey, give us some feedback. I want your feedback. I saw her post that several times, but there was also several times like, hey, I get that you don't like this. Can you tell me why? And then the response was, I'm not going to bother telling you why because you're not going to change anything. Well,
Yep.
Horrible.
If you're not going to respond to a request for actionable feedback, don't give any feedback.
Yeah,
Right?
you're shooting yourself in the foot right there.
You're not actually helping the conversation. You're diluting it and polluting it. So
yeah, there's a helpful expression here, which we all learned as kids, which is if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Which doesn't mean don't criticize stuff. Just don't lob insults. Don't get really angry at people. Just be like, I don't like this thing, and I don't like it because this thing doesn't feel good, or this change I don't like it because it makes this thing. Those are great. Those are great comments. Make sure you write those comments. Just keep the anger out of it.
I was
Try
really
your
Yeah.
best.
hoping for some sort of Canadian idiom that you're going to drop on us.
I wish
Constructive criticism.
we just say sorry. It's our one idiom. It works for everything.
You say what now?
We just say sorry.
Is that
That's
how
all
you
we
say
got.
it?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Okay.
Let's
So
move on.
with that being said, update 45. We're gonna keep it brief and kind of go over some of the big parts of each of this, and then talk about it. So that way everybody's you get a good understanding. And if you want more information, you can check on the update 45 release notes. And we'll start with some of the base character changes. So
Did you
one of
do
the first.
This
Pardon?
is the release notes.
Yeah, the release notes. Yep.
Great.
So I'm going through the release notes. So the first thing I want to talk about is we'll go through two-handed fighting changes. So for those of you that don't know, two-handed fighting is being changed a little bit. So now, instead of getting glancing blows, where when you strike targets, you do a little bit of
Let's
damage
cover that when
to
we get to
nearby.
two-handed fighting.
Oh, did you just want to go through this in order, like the way it's written here?
Follow the show notes.
Okay, sounds great. I'll follow the show notes. There's been a bunch of changes to some of the basic core abilities. So stuff like Scaldic Rage now scales with your Bard levels from the War Chanter tree. Asmars with Stone Skin active will no longer have their faces displaying incorrectly, which is a super cool bug fix because they used to have like a purple face. The Primal Avatar core abilities have had their typos corrected. Updated descriptions of Epic Mage Armor feat mention its duration. I've never actually cast that spell. I have no idea how long it lasts. Is it the same as Mage Armor?
I think it lasts pretty long, if I remember, because I mistakenly took it one time when thinking it would give me more armor class, and it didn't.
I think you can cast
but
it on others too.
Oh, you can?
I think I saw someone cast it on me. I was like, what is this symbol? Epic Mage Armor. Interesting.
Rangers now get a new favorite enemy, vermin. So you can now get those spiders and rats as a ranger and get extra
It
damage.
seems weird that they never had that.
Yeah, there's been vermin forever.
Yeah, but Vermin Bane wasn't programmed until like Epic Destinies, I think, or something.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. What do you take if you want Reapers? I'm just thinking about this. Is it they have
Lawful or evil outsiders.
Yeah, right?
And generally you take evil outsiders as a ranger, so
yeah,
get them all.
most people get it.
The spell Evar's Black Tentacles has had its targeting adjusted for better ease of use and accuracy when casting.
Again.
Yes. The first change was nice. This change is better. I tested on Lemania. Now it
Okay.
just works.
Well, that's good.
Oh, that's great.
And then a bunch of icons got fixed. So fix the border of the Vistanian Knife Fighter tree icons. Fix the falconry tree icon so it doesn't poke out the edges of the window, which is exciting. Tiefling and Tiefling Scoundrel racial enhancement tree icons are now unique and don't have an elf. So that's cool. Harper Agent now has more accurate icons for the ability selectors. And Know the Angles in the Harper tree now has its proper icon. So a bunch of icons got fixed for clarity.
I heard somewhere that the Vistani knife fighting style is actually slower than regular two-weapon fighting animation.
It was when it initially came out, and then it got adjusted later.
Oh, okay.
It's the same now. Items were changed. So the Rough Docent, which is an item from Keep on the Borderlands, level 1, now has an enhancement bonus of +1 instead of an erroneous +5. It always gave the +1 armor, but it just doesn't say +5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not actually a nerf, it's just a change of wording. Ratcatcher has been changed. Everyone's favorite crossbow for leveling from Threnal is now an 18 to 20 times 3 as opposed to a 17 to 20 times 3 critical strike.
I want to pause on this one because I think this is a good example of why some nerfs happen, because that thing was created, what, 12 years ago? Like,
yeah. Reno was a long
or I think
time
they
ago.
tweaked it or something along the way, but like this crossbow predates Inquisitive by so many years, right? And I think one of the things that people have come out and said with the Inquisitive nerfs is, why do you like you change things and why you just release them as so they're balanced? And kind of in the back of my head, part of what I was thinking, not necessarily related to Inquisitive, but there are things that get released, and then 5 years down the road, some other things get released, and now you have an imbalance that you have to tweak. And this is a good example of that.
Yes, absolutely. It's something that just, it was in the game for a long time and it was perfectly fine. And
they made it big because no one used those weapons. No one used that weapon.
Yeah, exactly. No one used
crossbows. They're trying to make it a little bit more enticing to use, but now everyone's using that type with Inquisitive.
There's a lot of old weapons and old packs like Tyr Dakan, CO6, even the Demon Queen has a crossbow that's I would say a heavy crossbow that's pretty much like its heavy version of a rat catcher, but it has a 1d12 base die, and I think it has like one less crit stat that the rat catcher don't have, but whatever. There's Sheridan's Ruin, and that just have these weird stats, right? That if they make a build that specializes in those weapons, they will come back with a vengeance, right?
Well, all these items were designed before every class had access to +1 critical threat range and multiplier from their enhancement trees, and Epic Destinies gave extra crit multi, and set bonuses gave extra crit multi, and special attacks gave extra critical threat range and crit multi. So
people use those weapons as a mainstay of builds.
To be fair, they came before there was even enhancement trees.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be the old enhancement panel.
True. May it rest in peace and never return.
Never return. The boarding pass to Sharn now uses the same induction time as other teleport items, like the Bottle of Mist or the Stormreach D12.
I think I had a couple comments on this one that the devs posted too.
Yes, and so they just want to they made the change to standardize the induction time across all the teleport items. So Sharn's boarding pass originally had an induction time, but a bug prevented it from working. So they did some R&D and were able to make the first spell in DDO ever that uses an induction cast, something they've wanted to do for a long time. And so there's some bugs to clean up with the bar, but it was less about destroying the something of value and more about trying to keep the teleporting items about the same. So they can probably lower the induction time of the teleport items, but they're just using the base numbers, and that it was nice to be able to click and immediately be whisked out of danger or at the end of a quest, but they have to have some level of induction on these items to prevent a host of gameplay issues. And that's specifically about stuff like Hardcore League, run to the end of the quest and finish the thing with a barrel of monsters coming at you, and then just hit a button and you're gone.
Yeah, that's not so great for lag and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people. This is one of those notes here that I think a lot of people really keyed in on is you're making game changes because of hardcore, which is not an unreasonable thing to see because
I
a
mean,
lot
but
of
it's such a minor change.
Yeah, it's
well,
not that big deal.
no,
I
it's
mean,
not that big of a deal unless you're playing hardcore and need a quick exit.
Like,
teleport scrolls are almost instant.
It's true.
yeah, like there's a lot of things you can do to instantly get out of somewhere. I mean, a lot of classes have some type of teleport or recall. Dimension doors still exists, but I find it very interesting. It's a change that affects only people that bought the Ultimate Sharn pack, and even still, it's in 99.9% of gameplay, it's still the same item.
I think
It's
they
basically a teleport scroll that's ML1. That only
Yeah.
works for those. Like that is an interesting point. It kind of feels like, wow, I gave you all this money and now you're penalizing me.
I think they actually said that the reason the bug cropped up was because when they broke it out into a multi-selector.
They had multiple teleports, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather that than having 4 items in inventory.
Yeah. And I like the point that she's gonna look at shortening the time because it is the bottle and the key are kind of a pain. But those I didn't look on Lemania if they're faster if they're normalizing the
They're
wait time.
uninterruptible.
Yeah.
You can't get interrupted when you're using the D12 or the miss.
Oh, that's cool.
You
So
just have to survive.
as far as quests go, there's some typos fixed in the Haunted Halls of Evening Star, which is astounding considering how old that quest pack is.
Yeah.
And the Cerulean Hills Wilderness area has had a polished past makeover. It looks very nice. You should check it out.
This is interesting.
Well, isn't it
Why?
because they're adding an area near there called the Gatekeeper's Garden?
I don't have any information on that. I did take a look and it looks very nice. So then there's some feats. So now, if you are ineligible to take a feat due to not having a prerequisite, the tool, having an anti-requisite, so the opposite, the tooltip with the feat will now display that information. So say if you want to take 2 weapon fighting and single weapon fighting, it will now tell you why you can't. And class level requirements for feats that required class levels in one of many different classes, such as spell penetration, now display their class level requirements in a much more concise and clear manner that better illustrates if you've met any of the requirements. And feat categories should no longer erroneously require character level 21. I don't know what that categories comments about in 21.
I'm not sure either.
The shared bank got updated, and it is amazing. So now you can sort your shared bank in ways that you can never do before. So not only could you already search your shared bank, you can now sort it by most recently added, oldest first, item name, either A to Z or Z to A, and finally, minimum level, level 1 to 30, or 30 to level 1.
This is beautiful. This is
And
art.
it's amazing. And on top of that, you can also filter it based on item slot. So instead of having to type in the weapon you're looking for or the specific item, there's a drop down menu where you can select all items, weapons, shields, rune arms, armor, your eye items, head items, necklace, all the equipment slots, as well as cosmetics as well. So cosmetic weapons, armor, headwear, and cloak. And they even made sure to include quivers.
So here's a theory I came up with. Remember when we always bring up on the Wednesday live stream because I watch every single one of them, cosmetic bags, right? And they used to say we have a hard time, our system has a hard time telling the difference between the cosmetic and the real thing when it's mirrored. If is this a sign that technology is coming by? Cosmetic bags, if our bank can establish the difference between a cosmetic and the real item.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Possibly.
Yeah, it's possible.
Is this a clue to the future?
Maybe. I'd buy that bag in a second.
I'm hoping they can put this feature in the reincarnation stash. That would
That we can only dream.
That would make taking stuff out of that thing so much nicer. Hey, I hit level
Yeah.
5. Sort by level 5 and below items.
I feel like they don't want to say it, but they just don't want us to have a TR. Like I think they want us to empty it right away. Like we're not
I think
trying to
that was
make it feel like
their
a.
expected intent. I'm not sure why that was their expected intent, but originally that was, yeah.
I wouldn't be.
I do it every life because the emptying the TR cache reduces your lag while you play.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like I wouldn't
I
be
don't have enough room
surprised
to
if
empty
some.
it.
I wouldn't be surprised like they're not going to tell us don't use the TR cache, but they're not gonna also like promote use because but like it's probably a cause of lag if we think about it. All the people who wait until they're about to TR to empty it and then refill it.
Oh
I
yeah.
just have too much stuff to not. That's the problem.
Yeah, DDO, can you take away our stuff so we can clean our TR cache?
No. People didn't like that.
Someone I know got the bug where it deleted their TR cache when they TR'd, so they had nothing, and they were like super mad about it. And then after like a few weeks, they were like, TRing is now super easy because they're like, I lost all my stuff, but now I have no TR cache. So they're like, I save an hour every TR.
Yeah.
So the new Gatekeeper's Grove, so you were right, is a new public area that's been added with entrances in both the harbor and the Cerulean Hills. There is currently only one gatekeeper there admiring his accomplishments. Perhaps soon others will move out of the city and into the Grove.
See, that's what I was talking about. The
Yeah.
gatekeepers.
Think they'll move the ones that are in the Hall of Heroes there?
They'll probably move some of them. I don't know if
You
they're
still
going
need
to
to
move
buy Hall of Heroes to access it?
by Hall of Heroes.
Do you have to buy Hall of Heroes?
I thought
remember there
anyone
was
can
a-
just go in it. I thought it's an area.
I remember there being something. Maybe when it was released, they were talking about doing that, and then they scrubbed that or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because you can't reincarnate without the Hall of Heroes.
Now you can't.
What if all the gatekeepers that are speckled around the game were just like renting until their home get renovated? They were like, "Oh, we just bought this land by Cerulean Hills, and we're just gonna be here until it's all finished."
Maybe. I know that some of the gatekeepers for lore reasons have to stay there because anything that goes to like another universe, so like the the slave lords and stuff like that, the Hall of Heroes is technically like a void space outside of the universe. So that's how you can go from one dimension to another.
Yeah.
So they lets them do that. But a few harbor NPCs have had their animations adjusted. The area of the marketplace near the catacombs and House Caneth has been adjusted slightly. Verisgante in House Jarasco is more willing to summon his ally Donato. I don't know what that means. I don't know who that is. Spells and abilities that are meant to visibly hide your weapons now do so much more reliably, such as Spirit Blast while your weapons are meant to be hidden due to Eldritch Blasting, and drastically reduces situations in which weapons are meant to be shown, such as dual crossbows flickering out of existence after opening a door or using a lever, which is great. Makes
Just
it
in
look cleaner.
time for you to stop playing Inquisitive.
Don't stop playing Inquisitive. It's still the best thing. But anyway, Guild Ship Officer Doug Barr no longer sells Guild Airship buffs or transport NPCs, although he still supplies training dummies, crafting stations, and guild chests. So that's the guy in the basement. He is no longer going to sell the Guild Ship amenities. And so the resist shrines for the basement and all the little dudes that you talk to get the +1 to some of your stats are no longer available for sale.
I mean, really, let's just focus. There's two things about this, right? Because there was a bug, and more things were taken out of that list than were intended.
Yeah.
So they're putting stuff back in. But the resist shrines are going away.
Yeah. So you'll need to go get yourself some resist pots again.
I believe House Fjarland, you can buy resist buffs from them.
You can.
Yep, they're the 30 resist buffs. I use them all the time on hardcore.
Yes, that will be a much more popular thing come hardcore season 2, because one of the best things about having a guild ship was those 30 resist shrines.
The ranger trainer in Sharn has been adjusted to not impale themselves with their bow. Great job. Ogre death animations now play all the way through. I did notice they kind of sometimes just glitch out and hit the ground. And the reagent vendors in Featherfall's Apothecary now have different shops for each class that use a particular set of spell components for easier parsing. So instead of having to talk to the arcane and the divine guy, you have paladin, cleric, druid, artificer, sorcerer, wizard, whatever, which is nice.
It is.
It's nice to see local businesses hiring.
That's it. The Stormreach is getting better. We're improving it every day.
Yeah, the economy is the highest it's ever been.
I do want to go back to the shrine thing from the ship's hold.
Yeah.
That change, more than any other change, feels counter to what they were saying about not making changes specifically to hardcore. Because otherwise, I'm not sure why at this point you make that change.
I think in a lot of cases, the access to 30 resists to like every character all the time affects how you play.
Sure.
So if you're redoing, like I have a lot of past lives, so when I run through the harbor quests, I don't really think too much about some of the monsters that I'm coming up against, even on like Reaper mode, just burning through lives. But I always make that stop at the ship, because the second you realize you forgot to hit the ship and grab those resist buffs, all of a sudden the champions that have those little dot effects are important. That Kobold Lightning Bolt is now actually kind of dangerous.
A little too
Even
dangerous, if you ask me. But
yeah, and so all of a sudden, all these things that you didn't even think about because the damage was too low are now actually like a big deal. And
sure.
I think
But
it just
why do we
makes,
care if hardcore doesn't exist?
I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with needing to think a little bit more about needing to have your particular stats. Like during the early game, you never really equip. Actually, not even during the early game, you never equip items that give you resistance bonuses to like elements ever.
I have the augment or two augments, one that take cares of majority of them except Sonic, but that's in the epic side.
Yeah,
I'm actually looking at this in a different way. Like, remember they were investigating ships instance collapsings recently to see if that was adding to lag, and maybe they found something about um the plugins down there. They're like, oh, the resistance plugins, and plus we have the spell. No one's actually using that spell now because everyone's like, oh, I got the ship resist.
I can't tell you the last time I cast resist energy or resist energies.
Sure.
I stopped taking it, and it's a really good spell.
It's a great spell. And so I don't know. I can definitely see that it as being a hardcore only change, but also I think it is
I mean, I
something that's
get that
going to
it's
make.
not a hardcore only change, but I don't know. I look at that. That's the one thing out of all this stuff that I look at and like, okay, if you're not making this change for hardcore, why are you making this change now?
I guess I'm excited to get killed by stuff I never thought about before.
I like to believe that they found something out when investigating guild ships, because that did happen prior to this change too. And like that was the last time. Well, but besides, hardcore was a really good data mine for them. Like it was a very good um, scope for them to look into on habits and mechanics and stuff. But they also did recently delve into guild ships deeply, and maybe they found something.
Maybe. So we're ready to move on to the Alchemist.
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. So do you want to talk about the Alchemist first, or some of the bugs and stuff
No.
posted here?
Yeah, Alchemist is fine. So
Okay.
the thing we're not gonna do is go through each of the trees and read all the stuff for the trees because we'll be here all week. But can you summarize for us the way they broke this out into base class and then the three enhancement tree threads?
Yep.
So give us maybe skim through the base thread, and give us, and then maybe we'll do some highlights out of the trees as we go along.
Alrighty. So to start out with the base Alchemist class, this class comes from the Alchemist Savant, which is from the Magic of Eberron book. So that's kind of where they get the inspiration for it. It has a base attack bonus of 0.75, just like a rogue or a bard. And most importantly, their hit dice is a d4, like a sorcerer or wizard. So they do not get a lot of health.
Ooh.
Not a lot of health at all.
And not a lot of armor.
To stack on top of that, they're proficient with simple weapons and no armor whatsoever. So you cannot, equip any armor without having some type of penalty or needing a multi-class or a feat to fix that. On top of that, they're an intelligence-based spellcaster and are subject to arcane spell failure. So even if you get access to armor, you got to figure out how to work around that.
I don't think their
But
trees really have anything to get around it either.
they have
No.
nothing built into the class to deal with armor. Their saving throws, they've got good fortitude and reflex saving throws and bad will saves. So the opposite of Artificer. And their class skills, they get bluff, balance, concentration, diplomacy, haggle, heal, search, spot, spellcraft, and use magic device. It is important to note that Alchemist is going to be using poison spell power as one of the spell powers for some of their spells, and poison spell power is based off of spellcraft. So keep that in mind. They're also not trappers, so they're not just like artificers who can do traps. So alchemists, as they level up, the spells are recipes. So much like how wizards learn from scrolls, alchemists learn from alchemical recipes. Alchemical recipes can't be cast by anybody, even by alchemists. They're just items that alchemists can use to learn. And then once you inscribe it into your book, then the alchemist can select it as a spell.
Seems kind of weird that you would make it so that other people can't even UMD your scrolls.
Yeah, I think they said that it requires a special level of preparation to do, and that the idea is that the recipe, like a scroll, is you're magically inscribing something so that all of the power is in the page. But an alchemical recipe is like, get some of this and some of this, and you can do whatever.
I think they just don't want to
Yeah,
deal with
it's
game balance issues of other people doing reactions.
Yeah, that's probably the real reason, but
yeah.
yeah. On top of that, the alchemist spellcasting, which we'll talk about in a sec, is a little confusing. So there is actually a feat in your feat sheet that is called alchemist spellcasting, and it is a big instruction manual as to how to do it. You figure it out after like 10 minutes of play, but it's very unintuitive, and you might be confusing when we start talking about it. The big highlights for Alchemist is that they get bonuses to cast level for potions. So your potions get better as you level up when you chug them back. They get insightful reflexes for free at level 2, so that's int for reflex saves, which is great. They get alchemy on the run, letting them drink potions while moving at level 4. And this is a full movement. There's no slowdown whatsoever. It is fantastic. It's really nice.
Can I get that as a
They
feat
get
for my normal characters?
I don't know if anyone can get alchemy on the run, but I would consider multi-classing for this. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Um, they get the feat Multitude of Missiles, which is a new feat that anyone is able to get access to, but they get it for free. And it is essentially many shot, but for simple thrown weapons. So you get to add a bunch of double shot and range power to your simple thrown weapons for 20 seconds with a cooldown. And this feat is available to non-alchemists as well, as long as you have a base attack bonus of 6 and point blank shot. But alchemists get it for free.
Right, but it's the same requirements
As many shot, yeah.
Many shot, yeah.
Yep. They get resistances to natural poisons, so you don't fail your poison saves on a 1. They also get class feats as they level up every 4 levels, just like an artificer. And of the class feats, they get all the meta magic feats, as well as mental toughness. And then they actually don't get the spell focus feats, which you might normally think, but instead they get their own special alchemical studies feat, which is depending on which type of spells you would like to cast, you can increase the caster level of your specific alchemist spells. They also get the ranged feats, precision, precise shot, quick draw, rapid shot, because they are designed to use simple thrown weapons as well. And then they get a couple very unique alchemist feats. Battalion Brew, available at level 4, which gives them intelligence to hit and damage with simple weapons, because they're an intelligence-based class, so you don't have to worry about having Harper Agent for this one. Liquid Courage at level 8, which lets them use their intelligence for their will saves, as well as Tough Tincture, which lets them use their intelligence for their fortitude saves, which is super
You
exciting.
can only take one of those, right?
Yes, you can't take them both. You can only take one.
For the insightful saves, I always like if they're gonna give you reflex, I would always choose will. Because
Yeah,
I never dump con anyways.
yeah, you always have the fortitude saves. You figure that one out.
Yeah.
Then you can get the Toxic Tonic feat, which makes you immune to poison damage, and you get even more saves versus poison, so you are Warforged-esque at this point. And then finally, at Alchemist level, I believe they've just been changed to Alchemist level 15, you'll be able to take the feat Liquid Luck, which gives you evasion. So this class does gain evasion in it.
Eventually.
Now, yeah, potentially you can choose to take evasion,
eventually.
although you may not actually take it because there are some other castable feats and things that might be more relevant to you depending on what you're doing.
Well, and you only get, because you have to be at least level 15, which means you get, if you're talking about heroics, you only get the opportunity to take it at 15, 16, or 18.
Or 20, because they get a bonus feat at 20 as well.
Oh, okay.
You've got a few options, but still, it's not something that's like guaranteed.
Did you give the bonus feat progression?
Yes, it is just like Artificers, so it's every 4 levels starting at level. So the next thing that's core about Alchemist is the spells. So Alchemists cast spells with the same progression as Artificer, so getting second level spells at 3, third at 6, fourth at level 9, fifth level spells at level 12, and finally sixth level spells at level 15. So they only have a total of 6 spell levels, and they're special. Each of the Alchemist spells is kind of like a miniature recipe where all of the base spells are coded with a material type, whether Crimsonite, Guildleaf, or Cerulite, which are also color coded if it's hard to remember weird ingredient names. So red spells, yellow spells, and blue spells.
Thank you for that.
And
Yeah.
by casting spells of different colors, you get yourself a reaction, which then gives you special bonuses while you're in that reaction state. And it's like adding the colors together. So Crimsonite and Guildleaf, or red and yellow, make orange, which is pyrite state, and orange is related to doing increased damage. So you've got the 3 reaction states and the 3 different spell types. The spell types generally correspond to one thing. So the red spells are all about damage and hurting people, as well as buffing weapons. The yellow spells are about healing people with a little bit of crowd control and some strong single target debuffing and damage spells. And then the blue spells are like defensive buffs, utility spells, some crowd control, and stuff like that, as well as some special healing abilities. So non-standard things. So as opposed to just like health, doing restoration or something is a blue spell. And then depending on whether you cast the spells in order, if you cast a red and a yellow spell, giving you access to all the damage and healing spells, you become Pyrite, which gives you bonus spell power. So you can start smashing people. If you cast yellow and blue spells, giving you access to healing and crowd control and defensive spells, you become green or Verdonite, giving you healing and negative spell power. And then if you cast the damage spells as well as the crowd control and defensive spells, that's the red and the blue, you become purple or Orchidium, which gives you physical resistance rating and some defensive bonuses. There's also a bonus for popping into the different forms for a short duration. So if you are a Pyrite, so that's the associated with spell damage, you get a huge amount of extra spell power and 20% spell point cost reduction for 12 seconds, which is kind of nice. So when you want to deal damage, you can get it out quick. The Verdonite, or the green, which is associated with healing, gives you a huge amount of positive and negative spell power, as well as a big bump in your DCs for spell casting if you want to crowd control some people. And then the Orchidium, the purple one, associated with the physical damage and using your weapons, gives you a big bump in physical and physical resistance rating and elemental resistance. And so these things can get pretty substantial, but they are short term when you pop into the state. I don't want to go through all of the spells because there's like 100.
We're definitely not doing that.
But important things to note about the spells is that they have all new unique animations. So all of the spells are completely redesigned. This also impacts spells that artificers threw potions for, like the admixture spells. Those got redesigned. So they've got new animations and stuff, which is nice. And then the different animation styles that they essentially have a bottle throw where you whip a bottle at somebody and it does something. They have a bottle drink, which is usually like a self buff where they can drink a potion and it only affects themselves. And then finally, they have the bottle smash where they grab a bottle and they throw it straight down on the ground, creating an effect. And so to give you some like basic highlights, when you start out at level 1, your red spells, your damage spells, you get either some single target, whip a bottle at a guy, or throw a bottle on the ground to do AoE around you. Your basic yellow spells, you've got the admixtures, as well as inflict light wounds admixtures. So you're able to heal undead as well, which is very nice. And some basic crowd control, like a sleep powder where you drop sleeping gas nearby and everyone falls asleep. Or the blue spells, where you can get all sorts of good self buffs that are just temporary. So you can get drink a potion that gives you feather falling and jump, or drink a potion that gives you water breathing and swim. Stuff like that.
Yeah, they got like I think they said they made like over 100 new spells.
Yes.
Alchemist.
There's a lot of new spells, and they kind of just change up how you cast them in the area in which you cast them. And one of the
Right.
things they try to focus on is that no matter what type of alchemist you play, you're always using the spells, and a lot of them can provide some interesting effects. Um, as you level up with the Crimsonite, the red damage spells, you go from doing single target whip a bottle at a guy to most of your spells becoming area of effect, getting some big spells like the multi-vial spells, which are very closely related to Meteor Swarm, but for all of the elements: fire, acid, cold, poison, whatever you want to do, as well as a big hitter called Elemental Reaction, which is essentially like Hellball, where it does a whole bunch of damage types all in one big burst on an area of, and these are all area of effect spells. The yellow spells, the Guild Leaf spells, get more exciting in that you get PRR and MRR damage buffs on some of your spells, and they become area of effect. So you can whip a potion at a guy, and it reduces their physical resistance rating to help out your melees, or to reduce their magical resistance rating. As well, getting the craziest spell I've ever seen, actually two of them, they get Heal Admixture, which is like the heal spell, but it's AoE. And this spell is very, very potent, since we'll talk about that in a little bit with some of the other trees. And then also Flesh to Gold, it's like Flesh to Stone, except it's mass, where you whip a potion at your feet and everything nearby you turns to gold. It's very useful.
Yeah, I can't wait to see, because I hadn't went to Lamani. I figured there was going to be a lot of content creators over in Lamani anyways, so I'll really want to see what the gold look would be like, just a bunch of gold players walking around.
Oh, it's really nice. And then finally, the Cerulite spells, other than just the basic extra stuff you can do, so like some of the defensive bonuses, they also get access to things like Melt Lock, where you can open doors with knock. They also get access to all of the action boosts as bottles. So instead of the action boost being in the trees, you drink a potion that it works like an action boost. It has a longer cooldown to make it balanced, because it's got unlimited use based on your spell points. And it shares a cooldown with regular action boosts. Instead of a 30-second, it's a 40-second cooldown. And it does not work with Legendary Dreadnought. I already tested that. But they have access to all of them. So sprint boost, haste boost, melee power, range power, double shot, spell power, defense. It's all there.
Fun.
And then finally, they also get the big one. They get Greater Stone Skin, which is like Stone Skin, but it's more powerful. And then their top tier effect, they get Gold Skin, where they turn themselves gold, and it's even better than Greater Stone Skin, which is kind of. So there's a lot of spells, and it's a lot to take in. But
Yeah.
suffice to say, they cast spells and deal damage. And then they also cast spells and heal, and they also cast spells and defend themselves, and have a lot of cool utility.
I mean, the casting stuff people will pick up on pretty quick. It's the reaction-y stuff that's going to confuse people. And I think it's one of those things, like once you start playing with it, I think it's going to become pretty more intuitive. The one thing I did want to kind of talk about the reaction-y thing is you kind of mentioned the short buff. So they're kind of trying to entice you into changing which reaction you are in with some regularity.
I thought that at first, but the buffs are removed when you change a state. So if I go into purple, I get the purple buff, which is a bunch of physical resistance rating. If I leave purple, I lose the short-term buff.
Right, but you can get the long-term buff back.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you want to get there's some interesting gameplay in there that's designed to encourage you to change your reactionary state to get that big buff potentially.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really cool it's a different engaging mechanic for sure.
Yes.
Especially if you're playing as a pure alchemist right now, if you're getting wailed on or there's a reaper coming at you, you can go, "Oh god, swap yourself into the purple color and you get 135 physical resistance rating."
Yep.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty big. But then it goes away, and then the reaper kills you.
Yeah.
So they have 3 enhancement trees, like most classes, and they're focused. There's one focused on the orange state, which is damage spell casting. It's very similar to sorcerer savant trees. So you get bonus caster levels with an element, and the idea is, uh, as a bombardier alchemist, you focus on one element only. So you pick whatever element that is, whether fire, cold, electric, acid, or poison. And then after selecting that element, you get bonus caster levels with that element, as well as increased, increased crit chance with that element. And the big ticket thing you're going to get out of this tree, not only do you, it's like regular spellcaster tree, crit, some SLAs, stuff like that. Uh, there is the effect of a weakening admixture. So, whichever damage type you decide to choose, say you said, I want to be a cold alchemist, you might wonder how you deal damage to monsters who are immune to cold. Well, don't worry about it. The weakening admixture is a passive that allows you to remove the immunity to damage of whatever damage type you cast if you hit a monster that is immune, or increase the damage that a monster takes by 15% when a monster is not immune. So, you are able to bypass the immunity of fire, cold, acid, lightning, and poison spell damage. You just have to pick one.
You know, there's an interesting effect in here that you kind of get like a DOT thing, but like for the way it's worded is that if you have like 5 bombardiers and each of them have their own type, each one of them are able to do their stacks separately and simultaneously. So
Yes.
so you kind of have a Captain Planet situation, or like poison, fire, lightning, and then like with our powers combined, this boss is roasted.
So the burning ambition is another effect in this tree. So while you're in the orange reaction state, any spell damage you deal causes a damage over time effect. It's important to note that on Lemania, this damage over time effect did not work at all. So that's important. But it causes a damage over time effect for the element you hit them with, and that you can have one stack for each of the different elements. So it doesn't stack up. It's not like you can have like if you hit the 3 fire spells, you get a 3-tier fire dot. It's just the one dot, but you can have a fire, a cold, electric, acid, and poison all at the same time. The nice thing is alchemists is actually able to apply them all themselves. There's a spell that they get that I should probably have been looking up here. It's the Hellball spell that deals all of the 4 different damage types called Elemental Reaction, and it actually applies all the dots for you instantaneously. So you don't have to worry about having multiple players. You can just do them all yourself, and then once you have the dots on, you can apply vulnerability to enemies with any spells that you cast. Um, as far as how the damage goes and how they test out, they look pretty similar to Sorcerer. They're potentially a little bit better or a little bit worse depending on what you're doing. But I would say overall, for the leveling process, they're going to feel pretty similar. And then once you get to level 30, they'll probably feel a little bit worse just because you don't have as many spell points as a sorcerer. And this class doesn't have a way to get like temporary spell points like Sorcerer did. But you can heal, and Sorcerer can't do that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's a balance thing too, right? Because this class is very versatile, so there's a lot of interesting things they did from a balance perspective, like not giving you armor, giving you
Yes.
D4 hit dice, not giving
Yes.
you a lot of spell points and like that. So
A lot of people think that this is going to take over, but a sorcerer is running around with medium armor on and a whole bunch of extra health and all this other stuff from Eldritch Knight, and then the alchemist is like, "Hey guys, I'm still wearing robes.
yeah.
Please don't stab me."
But this class
So
is
the
like I said, it's a lot more versatility. Like that's where it's getting its stuff from. Because you can have that bombardier tree and be really really boomy, but also have some pretty decent healing stuff to go along with it.
Absolutely. So the next tree is the apothecary tree. Super quick and dirty. It is all about healing. It gets a bunch of spell-like abilities for a lot of the curative admixtures. However, I said all about healing. That's not 100% true. This tree is also about hurting. Alchemists are designed to be offensive by nature. So you get some cool spell-like abilities like Spill the Bad Stuff, which is basically bad breath from Final Fantasy, where you dump a bucket in front of you and monsters have a chance to be blinded, dazed, silenced, tripped, stunned, or paralyzed. So it can get you real fast and real bad. And then on top of that, they also get some very powerful abilities like Dissolve, where if an enemy is, it's essentially like coup de grace. If an enemy is fascinated, sleeping, dancing, dazed, tripped, mesmerized, paralyzed, petrified, or stunned, they have to make a fortitude save based on your heal skill or die. So you want to max
Based on
out
your
heal on this
heal skill?
character. Yeah, the healer tree gets an instant kill.
A
Skill
coup
or
de
rank?
grace, a action enhancement.
Yep,
It's exactly like coup de grace.
it's exactly like coup de grace. And it is very, very useful. As a healer, you're going to want to be like moving around up with the melee doing stuff, which is not always great because you could die, but it's pretty cool. One of the reasons why they become very powerful is not only do they get an ability, the best named ability I've ever seen, called Run for Your Life, where when you're green state, you get extra move speed, which is just awesome. Um, they get Master Apothecary, which says you have no maximum cast level with curative admixtures or any Guildleaf Alchemist spell. And the reason why this matters is that it affects the heal admixture, and heal usually has a cap of level 15, so it heals for 150 base healing, and then you amp it with your spell power or whatever. But for this, an alchemist who's a pure alchemist, just by being in an arcane destiny, will be able to have 26 on their heal, and that's not including all the other bonuses. So they're healing for almost double what a favorite soul or a cleric does, and it's an AoE potion, which is very, very nice. It's fun to play with. It seems like it might be almost too good, but you didn't hear me say that. So they're pretty cool. They also get the ability to convert, just like the Renegade Mastermaker does, where Renegade Mastermaker converts people into Warforged. The Apothecary can convert people into either taking full healing from a life salve or taking full negative healing from the death salve, because they do focus on both positive and negative healing for all intents and purposes. You guys got anything else to say about the Apothecary?
Nope. Sounds fun.
It sounds like when I went over this tree on my live stream, it screams of my friend Voodoo Spice. He loves those there's a lot of sturdiness in here. There's a lot of unconscious HP range, yeah, a lot of like bulkiness, but also support, which is something that he likes to make. He has a druid caster tank that he counts himself as a healer and a tank when he can take up those two slots in a raid. He has voodoo, his warlock. Like he just likes to contribute to raids. So I feel like this one would be right up the alley of people who want to be a bulky support caster healer. And when I say support, I mean you're gonna be putting in some work. This is gonna
Oh
be
yeah.
you know it's not like you're like here's a tower. Like no, you're putting in kill count, you're putting in heals. This is a solid go-to for those bulky people who want to just like really give a helping hand to a whole party.
Kind of feels
Something we
like
didn't mention. Oh, go ahead.
kind of feels like whichever people are gonna focus in either Bombardier or the one we haven't talked about, the Violet Apothecary.
I think I'm gonna do one of each. I really like this.
Sure, but it feels like people are gonna focus on one of those two, and then go in, if whichever one of those you pick, your secondary is gonna be the healing tree.
Maybe the problem is the healing tree cast yellow spells, which really screws up the biochemist.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Something I didn't mention is there's a new metamagic feat, Accelerate, coming out with Alchemist that makes your potions fly real fast. It basically turns them to straight lines. And it's less, like about half of the travel time. So if you're worried about being able to land potions on people, and that you have this admixture and someone's just going to die first, it's very, very impactful. You feel like your Major League Baseball pitcher just whipping 100-mile-per-hour fastballs at people. So the last tree is the Biochemist. This is the Martial tree, and it is designed to be used with simple weapons. So it gets a bunch of bonuses with simple weapons. On top of that, you also gather a Eldritch Knight style weapon imbue from the cores, and it is the same thing except poison. So the exact same scaling, it just does poison damage, where at level 12 it upgrades to D8s, D10s at level 18, and D12s at level 20 with the capstone. And it does poison damage on hit that scales with spell power. On top of that, this is also designed to be sort of like the ninja spy tree for shuriken throwers, but for simple weapon throwers, gaining an additional chance to throw a simple thrown weapon projectile based off your intelligence at level 6. And then there's simple thrown expertise, which is very similar to shuriken expertise, where you get an extra chance to throw shuriken or a shuriken based on your dexterity. Simple thrown expertise is double, you get extra double shot equal to your dexterity. This lets you use simple thrown expertise with your intelligence instead. So you can be an all intelligence alchemist all the time. So that's pretty neat. The major things out of this tree, a lot of the stuff is pretty basic. You hit targets, you get extra hit and damage, stuff like that. But the big thing is, a lot of you are probably concerned that, well, how can I play a poison character and use poison when half of the game is undead, which is nearly accurate. I think it's about 45% of quests have undead in them. So, how can you play a poison character? And the answer is Tier 4, Envenom the Heart. While your poison coating is active, hitting enemies that are immune to poisons or poison damage makes them vulnerable to poisons and poison damage for 12 seconds. And then creatures that you hit are not immune, creatures that you hit that are not immune take 15% more poison damage while active. So, as long as you hit people, you're always stripping off poison immunity and you don't have to worry about it. So there's nothing else that's too special in this tree. They get the greater wave of poison, where you can like do a melee range wave that adds a dot, but you're probably not going to stay in melee range unless you're playing as a melee specifically. And then they get bonus critical threat range for simple weapons, as well as multi, and then they get an extra +1 range for darts. So you actually don't need a multi-class with Bard for this because they get 2 range anyway. So it's kind of interesting. They look pretty good, and they are locked out of the healing spells for their Orchidium reaction, which gives them a whole bunch of extra dodge and physical resistance rating, as well as base attack bonus. So you're going to want to use that. But they look pretty good so far. Important thing to note is that a crossbow is a simple weapon, so you can use this tree with Inquisitive as well. Something to keep in mind. Whether that is going to be good or not, I am not sure. But this tree seems like it'll be very powerful. From talking to people who have been testing it and playing around with it, there have been some absurd DPS tests that people have done with this tree, and I think it's probably going to land somewhere around post nerf Inquisitive, which is still going to be very, very good, which is likely around where Shuriken Thrower is right now. And that's Alchemist.
Well, there's some stuff that I want to make sure we capture. That should be in the show notes. That's some of the comments that they've made.
Oh yes, about the Alchemist. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, so somebody did ask that one of the high points of this class is supposed to be that the alchemist can make buff potions, where you can like hand them out to people, and then like so the alchemist can like create special potions and give them to party members who can use at different times. And apparently the idea was tossed around internally for a while, but was cut before getting implemented. So alchemists will not be able to just
Probably a
do
good
that.
thing.
Yeah,
I can just imagine like being at the beginning of a quest and like everyone having to search their inventory, or heaven forbid you had to would have to trade the potions and stuff like
and
that.
that's it.
That would be that'd be so annoying.
I think that'd be kind of cool because it would be the only buff that you could, well, unless it's like drops when leave dungeon, but it'd be kind of like you can even almost have like a guild alchemist.
Like a shop guy who just stands
Yeah.
on the ship and is like, here you go, trade me money and I'll give you potions.
And then like you can have these really good buffs. I don't know. Actually, no. Now
But
I can see
imagine
that
if it
being
was
broken. Like a
imagine
level
if it was like
30
a
alchemist.
deadly weapon thing, right? Like you could give people a deadly weapon potion, but then you had they had to pick it up off the ground or trade with you, and then you're in a raid, and like the mechanics there just kind of break down really fast.
Yeah, it's the problem of like DDO players. So if you've ever tried to play a bard, like a buff bard, Inspire is you cast a song and you hit one guy, and you gotta hit all the people in your party. It is impossible to hit all 6 people to get them to just like sit still for like 30 seconds at the beginning of a quest. People are off, people are running, and imagining trying to do this, oh no.
Yeah.
There would need to be a fast distribution system. Even if it was like you whip a potion at a guy and then it goes into their inventory.
What if it looked like the milkman carrying cases? They just drop a pack of 6.
Yeah.
That's actually a great idea. I like that a lot. So yeah, there's sticking to robes as a core decision about the class. So you can take steps to get armor proficiency on an alchemist character, but they're not planning on adding any type of armor proficiency for the people that have been asking for it. So you can get the armor feats or get another class, but the arcane spell failure does still apply, so you have to work around that.
I mean, I think you can work. I think you can get starting at level 12 or 13. You can get a augment that will lower light armor pretty well.
Yeah, if you're an elf and you have an augment, you can dump 30% off your armor, which is pretty nice. So, as far as Steel Star said on Alchemist, for their crowd control, so Reapers don't have flesh, so you can't flesh to gold them. Unfortunately, no Golden Reaper statues. On top of that, Alchemist does get a bunch of freezes and stuns, but they don't work on Reapers because Reapers are incorporeal. And
I seen Reapers stun before, not like stunning fist stun, but I seen them dazed or at least like get that spinny thing around their head.
yeah, some stuns in DDO just work on all targets for
Reasons.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. But the general conventional wisdom is that they can't be stunned by like regular effects. But yeah, so the bottle throwing spells. So the way that they work is that if you want to throw a bottle at a guy, it has to be hard targeted. So you can't cast a spell at a ground or an area, which is important. So unlike a sorcerer who can meteor swarm and just whip it and it goes across the room and hits a guy, this you have to hard target. And the reason is because the bottles are actually all coded to be affected by gravity and they have a fixed speed. So if you just try to target an area, the game can't figure out how to arc or move the projectile. And especially with accelerate getting in the way, it makes a whole bunch of weird stuff. But if you have a specific target, then the game can instantly calculate what to do with the potion as it flies through the air. And so it will arc to the right area or land in the right area.
What does this mean for the multi bottles? Does that mean that like I won't have a chance to hit like a second guy if the first two bottles killed the first mob?
They will actually all still explode on the area of the corpse. I did check this. So as long as all the bottles go out, they will all land. They just have to physically come out of your character.
Well, they have to get there too, right? Like there's a trajectory thing that comes into play, and they can hit other things.
Yeah, and they do arc, so they can go over fences and stuff, but only at the right angles. So there's that, and I think that's it. Oh yeah, and that Vile Chemist doesn't get a lot of spell power to fuel its poison spell power, whereas Eldritch Knight gets a ton of spell power. So they're definitely designed differently in that regard.
Well, the huge difference is that Eldritch Knight can't force you to take that damage. They have to switch to the element that you're not immune to.
Yes.
While this person can be like, "What? You're immune?"
Yep, just got them anyway. So that's pretty much it for Alchemist. You guys have anything else you want to say about that?
I do have something to say about. I told you guys. I just wish that Swashbuckler also got some of this throwing love because they do have enhancements specific to throwing, and it's kind of sucks that Ninja Spy 2 and the Vile Chemist cores have things that help them get that double expertise kind of thing, while the thrower Swashbuckler option is still kind of like a seedling concept.
Yeah, I was gonna make a comparison and say, yeah, but bards get all sorts of cool stuff because bards get, they get the songs and they get all the damage buffs and everything else. But when comparing it to monk, but alchemist has an entire spell list, so that kind of goes out the window.
Yeah, unless you want to make like an int based like 8 bard 12 alchemist, but then it would be an alchemist that plays music. It's like Swashbuckler should be able to be at least a third place thrower compared to the two.
Oh man, an alchemist that plays music. It sounds like we're going back to Woodstock.
It's a
Oh, boy.
moonshine maker with a fiddle.
Let's move on before we get into more trouble.
Okay. So the balance changes. So we didn't talk about what some of the changes are, but we do have a. Did you want to talk about the changes first, or just start with a note from Sev about the comments?
That's a good question. Why don't you read the first paragraph in the main thread?
Yes.
Because that's what the Sev's comment relates to.
Okay. So, as far as for the balance changes, just put here. So update 45 is expected to contain a large amount of changes to the balance system DDO. They're being done in preparation for Hardcore Season 2. And going forward, the plan is to pool most major balance changes into updates or patches that arrive before the start of new hardcore seasons in order to make the new season feel distinct and different from previous seasons.
Okay,
For hardcore
stop.
season, go ahead.
No, stop when it stops talking about hardcore season.
Yeah, exactly. For hardcore season 2, this primarily takes the form of changes to ranged combat, two-handed fighting combat, melee combat, and Knight of the Chalice revamp. So, there's that. And then we have a note from Serverlin.
Yeah, this
to
will
follow up with
clarify
this.
things because we were actually talking about this on DDOCast Splat before I had read this comment from Severlin, because that initial comment from Kokomajovo makes it seem like one hardcore season is coming very soon, which it still may be. But it also kind of implies that they're making changes more specific to changing the hardcore experience, which I think Severlin's comment kind of explained that that's not the intent.
Yeah.
I know it's not coming super soon.
That's good.
So Verlin says, he says, greetings, thank you for the feedback on the Lemania deployment. And he says, there have been some concerns by players based on the wording of our notes that hardcore servers prompting us to make balance changes that we otherwise wouldn't consider. He says, all of our balance changes are aimed at the game as a whole. We do want players on the hardcore server to have a consistent play during the season and to be able to adopt strategies that won't drastically change. And we did mean to say that we plan to target balance changes so that they mostly happen between hardcore seasons. We don't want balance changes to be driven by hardcore play. And he says, for the range pass, we have a few additional changes coming. The Archer's focus stance and bows is going to be reworked. Bows will get an exclusive buff to help out with the changes. For the two-handed pass, the intention is not to lower single target damage for two-handed styles, and they want to make sure that doesn't happen. And they're also going to be reviewing changes to Dance of Death and testing how it compares to the cleave-based builds. But what he's trying to point out is that the idea is not that they're making adjustments for hardcore seasons specifically, like this has to get nerfed or else it's going to be a big deal in hardcore, but that they just want to make the changes before the season starts so that people that are playing hardcore don't have a situation where they can't complete something or something becomes drastically harder while they are playing it.
Or your build becomes invalidated.
Yeah, or something like that. Exactly.
Which is good. I think we can all agree that that's a good thing to have.
That is a good idea.
Well, yeah, and it also kind of gives me a hint of where hardcore season 2 is gonna, because they want to make these changes before it comes out. So I know there's at least another huge patch or update that's gonna come with more changes specifically to bows and archer focus. So I know there's gonna be at least a handful, maybe 3 months or so before it might be a thing. Right?
I mean, bows might even get an update in update 45 from some of the posts I've been seeing on the forums, like on the dev tracker. They might even be shoving it in here.
Yeah, but I feel like they're gonna make a lot more changes to the system so that way hardcore season 2 can have that playground that they're trying to work for right now. Like I feel like this is just the starting work to the construct of it. I feel like there's more updates to come before it comes out.
Yeah, just from a timing spec, I hope that's kind of true. They did say they are going to make changes to bows and stuff. So, all right, and several and going back to what we were talking about earlier about feedback and stuff, like this right here is evidence. Like they're looking at some things that people said, hey, we have concerns about this, and they're making some changes. Now, granted, they're not reacting to you're nerfing Inquisitive, we don't like this, feels like a bait and switch, to okay, well, we'll just make it as powerful as it was before, which I think is what a lot of people want. Okay, so let's go. I think there's more. Go back to the other basic.
Well, we didn't
stuff.
talk about any of the actual balance changes at all.
Yeah, so
the rest of the comments are about the balance changes.
Yeah.
So we'll try to make this as digestible as possible.
Yes.
Asmar Healing Hands doesn't work up to 30 now. It's only Asmar 20. So you're going to lose 50% of your healing. Or not, 33% of your healing as an Asmar if you are at level cap. Keep that in mind on Healing Hands. Sign
Which
of the
I think
Ethereal...
is going to be fine.
I'm sure it's fine. It healed
Like-
you like a million zillion health before. So
my
now it's
Mug's
only,
healing
like...
hands were a little ridiculous. So,
Yeah. And you get 7, and they regenerate. It's
yeah,
amazing.
It still scales with wisdom, though,
Yeah.
I think. So
Yep, it's still very, very good.
yeah, it's not as bad
Sign
as it
of,
sounds.
Sign of the Ethereal Plane got nerfed. It used to give you 1 hide for every, or 1 sneak attack for every 3 hide, and now it gives you 1.5 sneak attack for every rank of hide that you have. Or in layman's terms, if you max out your hide skill, you get 34.5 sneak attack damage just from putting skill points into it. Whereas before, you could get upwards of 50 or even higher points of hide by having 150 to 200 points of hide. So it is a nerf to some builds, and if you just want 34.5 sneak attack damage, you can take Sign of the Ethereal Plane. Draconic Incarnation has some cooldown
But before
increases
you
on
go-
Dragon Breath. Go
Before
ahead.
you go too much farther, there's some notes about healing hands. They made some comments about healing hands, and
Oh, the Healing Hands had a bug for the preview that erroneously kept your healing at 33% of what it should be. Oh, that makes sense. So yeah, so because I noticed a lot of people were seeing some lower numbers on actual Lemania, so it's doing less.
yeah, so there was a bug on
Um,
Lemania. So if you looked at a Lemania, it's wrong.
Yeah. And that they are interested in hearing about other people's ideas about Ethereal Plane scaling into epics, because scaling things off of skills was a great idea. But then all of a sudden, once skills got high enough, it began to eclipse other options. And that problem only gets worse as we get new items with higher stats. So the Scion feat should all be equally usable. And they're not, and they're worried about, having to redesign something as it gets more powerful. They'd rather nip in the bud now. And it's, not about builds with Ethereal Plane versus builds without Ethereal Plane. It's that Ethereal Plane continues to scale upwards, and no other feats do not do that.
Which
the
is sort of not true, because if they scale with spell power, right, that
well, it's sort of like, if you pick Arborea, you get 20 melee power and +2 to hit and damage,
right.
and then no matter what other stats you have, that's what the feat does. But Sign of the
Sure.
Ethereal Plane gives you more
the
sneak attack.
elemental ones. It's like, here's some elemental damage that doesn't that scale with spell power?
Yeah,
It does.
I
but-
take Feywild almost strictly on a lot of my DPS builds, just because, like, with just a little augment, I can produce a extra sonic damage, which most things aren't even blocked.
Sure.
They do scale, but I think it's not in the same vein because as the sneak attack damage, it's like a double scale where your hide gives you sneak attack damage and the sneak attack damage scales off your melee power.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know. It was just really good.
But it's important to note. I really wanted to highlight why they're making that change is less to do about. I mean, it is balanced to a certain extent, but it's also trying to say this needs to not scale with something that is going to ever be increasing when the other ones are not getting that benefit.
Absolutely. Sunder got reworked, so now Sunder, as opposed to just reducing armor class by 4 or 8, now it reduces armor class by 10% and reduces fortification by 25% for 6 seconds.
Crit love.
Whereas improved Sunder does the same thing, but it lasts for 12 seconds instead of 6. And on top of that, it also applies the trauma effect, which reduces fortitude saving throws, which makes your Sunders even easier on the next Sunder that you try to do.
Sack?
The Sunders?
It's just that fortitude part that stacks, right?
Yes, the fortitude part stacks to 5. Just not the rest of the stuff. Only the fortitude part stacks to 5.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what stacked in game currently.
Yeah, and so the new Sunder effect is nice. If you haven't played through like Sharn and other things, they have Legendary 2, so all of the monsters have fortification. It's like 75 extra fortification. So if you're wondering why you don't critically strike, that would be why. The regular guys don't take it. Falconry got cooldown reduction. That's nice. And then the big thing is to the tank builds. They made some adjustments. So Stalwart Defender got a bunch of huge boosts. So they just are immune to fear and knockdown as part of the tree. They get an extra 15% armor class as well as even more threat. They get an ability now called Against All Odds, which gives them armor class and makes it so that when they get hit, they get more armor class. And then finally, Reprisal, which was the effect where when you blocked damage, you would get more damage on your next hit. Has been replaced with Thick of Battle, so that striking enemies gives you more threat, and it stacks up when you hit enemies. So the more you hit people, the more threat you generate, which I think for a lot of tank builds is going to be a little bit more relevant. Um, for Paladin, Sacred Defender, they get more health, an extra 10% health, as well as more healing amp and lay on hands charges. They are also getting their capstone gives them 250 unconsciousness range instead of 40. They
Yay.
also get it. Yeah, it's huge. That's a big change.
Wasn't there one in Alchemist that has like a
Yeah,
you have a
Alchemist
1,000?
gets 1,000. Alchemist
Yeah.
gets 1,000 with Genius Never Dies.
that
Yeah.
was crazy.
They also get Faith Shield, which is a new ability that gives them 10% armor class and immunity to magic missiles, which is nice, as well as some spell resistance. And then finally, their Reprisal is getting replaced with an ability that makes the Aura of Courage stronger by giving more saves, armor class, spell resistance, and it gives the Paladin themselves an extra 100 life. So Paladins are getting 100 life and 10% extra life, which is pretty crazy. So it'll be a bunch of big changes. And then a lot of percentage HP is changing all over the place. So if you're not familiar with the tank meta, it's all about just stacking percentage HP and then armor class, physical resistance rating and stuff.
Let's
So
not
the
go
basic
into
changes,
the super specifics, but
yeah,
they're making everything kind of boil down to competence, sacred, and quality. I think, right?
yeah, they're just typing everything.
Yeah.
So now
There's a
a
few
lot of
that
things
get
don't
reduced.
stack that used to.
The ASMR one got reduced. The Renegade Mastermaker one got reduced.
Yes. Occult Slayer got one for some reason.
Yeah.
Dwarf got a buff, an extra 1%.
Yep.
And then War Priest gets 10%
Right.
out of Core 4, which is neat because no one played that. And I don't know if anybody will, but if you do, that's 10% free health. Why not?
The fun thing about all this is, you kind of alluded to this earlier, is like the meta for tank building changes a lot because there's a lot more options now. Like you can actually make a pure paladin or fighter tank that is comparable to
some of the multi-class options.
a lot of the multi-class options now. And the fun thing is they're functionally different, right? The fighter one is going to have more AC and better threat. The paladin one's going to have more health.
You get more health and you get more like you can heal yourself and other people and raise the dead.
I like that they're one making those pure fighter and paladin tanks are going to be really a lot more viable than they or more comparable than they were. And they're still very, even though they're kind of using the same tree, they're very different. They're going to have a different feel to them at the end.
So stealth got changed. So sneaking now, there's different sneak speed enhancements all over different trees. They don't no longer stack. You can just only take one. And Shadow Training 2 just gives an extra 150% bonus to stealth movement speed instead of just amping up your normal speeds. You no longer turn into a race car. I didn't play with it, but I'm assuming that's probably fine. And then stealth mechanics, there's been a change. So now if you're in sneak mode, you can actually see monsters that are all seeing, like Reapers and stuff. They'll actually have an icon above their head, and you'll be able to physically see the rate, like when you can't walk around something. So it's going to be more visual. So if you didn't understand why some monsters would always see you, you'll be able to see which monsters they are and why they're seeing you,
Nice.
which is important. And then melee changes, they're just adding a few charges. So spring attack has been redesigned. So instead of spring attack being like you don't have a -4 when you're moving and attacking. Instead, now it's actually a dash forward where you do a charge like abundant step, and it hits everything that you move through. So as long as you're holding a melee weapon. As well, Knight of the Chalice gets a ability called Lead the Charge, which does exactly, well, it's not the same thing. It's you click a guy and you press the button and you jump to the guy and you hit him with an attack. So it's for allowing melees to get into combat before ranged kill stuff.
Yeah, it's to close the gap. I noticed that they're really trying to make it so melees don't come into a mob that's already halfway killed or anything by rangers. Like everyone's getting an equal chance to take chunks.
Exactly. And then apparently they made a bunch of adjustments to make charges look better.
Hopefully they make them feel better. But I
Me
feel like half
too.
the time that I use one of those charge abilities, it doesn't land.
Yep, shield charge. I love that charge. Dire charge goes wherever you want or wherever it wants. It's weird.
Yeah. The Vanguard one is really nice. I don't know
it's awesome.
if it's as intended, but you can even use it underwater.
That's shield rush, which is slightly different. Shield rush is you can just charge whenever you feel like it. Shield charge, confusingly, is it's a targeted ability and it just goes to a monster.
Oh yeah. I always mix the two because they both have shield as their first word.
I know, it's so weird. So super quick and dirty, we'll talk about the Night of the Chalice changes.
Oh,
They're
boy.
very basic. They basically just take a lot of the stuff that was in the tree and shove it into the cores now, so you don't have to worry about taking like the energy drain, immunity, the greater restoration. The light damage now scales harder, so you get 200% off of melee power. The Aura of Courage at the capstone now gives you a 3% damage bonus to your entire party. So it's like they get now a damage bonus aura, which is really, really good.
Wonder if that's gonna stack with the War
It
Chanters.
stacks with all of them. It's a different bonus. It stacks with the War Chanter, and it stacks with the percentage bonus from Primal Avatar. I checked.
Oh wow! Have all those in your raid group?
It's
Oof.
very good. They also get bonuses to hit and damage with favored weapons and all weapons now, and a line on the left side of the tree. As well, they get new favored weapons, so you can get longsword, battle axe, heavy mace, morningstar, warhammer, and greatsword, even if that's not in your religion. So all paladins can use all those things, and they get nice training for free as part of the tree as well. So you don't have to worry about the feat because paladins are kind of feat starved. And then the big thing is they made a couple adjustments to the tier 5. So there's the big Holy Retribution. It used to be a AoE attack that would kill stuff that was in front of you if it had less than 1,000 health, which is awesome when you first get it, and then terrible once you hit level 15. Now it's been changed so that it doesn't take turn charges like it used to. It just has a cooldown, but now it scales off monster health. So it's actually still an instant kill, even in the higher levels. It just doesn't have a 100% chance to proc. But it means that if you're in Sharn, you can use this ability and still wipe out 3 to 4 guys instantly in front of you, as long as you have enough Sunder bonuses, because it all scales off of Sunder. On top of that, a bunch of Paladin spells got changed. So Bless now scales with level. Angel Skin is a defensive buff that works really well. Prayer scales with level. Stalwart Pact doesn't do what it did before and gives you melee and range power. And Zeal also gives double shot. So Paladins overall, a bunch of damage buffs that are great. Condensed a bunch of things. The whole tree costs, I think, 10 points less. And you can swap your weapon whenever you want. And doesn't matter what your deity feat is. So a lot of very positive changes.
We need
And
to
it
talk
looks
about
really, really
deity
good.
feat changes too.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
The deity feats changed a little bit. So before you would have to pick you pick your specific deity, and then there were options to choose like a child of or beloved of deity feat that give you bonus damage with your deity weapon. Those ones have just been changed instead of the specific deity to be of faith, and then it works with all deity weapons or favored weapons that you have. The benefit of this is not only does it mean if you have more than one weapon, you can swap between them and retain the bonus, but it also means that if you want to change your deity feat for whatever reason, because you're like, man, you know what? I don't want to be Blood of Vol anymore. I want to be Orion. You don't have to re-roll your character. You can just use a feat exchange to swap it out.
Right.
It's nice.
I think didn't they added a feat where you don't have to actually choose a deity. You can just choose this basic feat.
Yep.
And
You don't have to choose a deity either.
And it
I think
causes
you're
the
talking about the
feat
level 6 one.
Yeah. Instead of picking an active, you can just pick +3 concentrations.
Well, no, there's at level 6 you get a free deity feat and it gives you an ability.
Yeah.
And they made it so that feat is you just pick a feat and then it gives you the correct ability based on your deity. So if you want to change your deity, you only have to change one feat.
Exactly.
And you can change your deity. And it's just to kind of maybe boil it down even a little bit more. Basically, the feats that the first feat that you pick your deity, it just says, okay, this is now a favored weapon for you, and then the other feats say for all of your favored weapons, you get these bonuses.
Exactly. So it's more versatile, and it means all the different sources where you get bonus favored weapons, like from the Wood Elf, or from Divine Crusader, or from Paladin.
It said dwarf is going to get Dwarven Axe as a favored, can add as a favored weapon in the racial tree,
which is very exciting. Poor bastard sword.
I think there's an Epic Destiny now that has a multi-selector for some favored weapons.
Yeah, Divine Crusader does. But yeah, testing it looks really good, and the abilities work really well. The tree is really nice. 10 to 10 would do again. And then ranged combat changes.
Before you do that, I think you
Okay, did you
skipped
wanna-
the Coco Majobo's comment on the balance changes.
For Knight of the Chalice.
No, for just in general.
Oh, at the top there.
Yeah.
Oh, so yes, so they had goals with the Knight of the Chalice changes, which was to increase the overall viability of
Oh,
DPS weapon-based paladins.
no. In the show notes,
I
I highlighted them. Let's see if I find this. So Coco Majobo said the stretch goal is for a systems update or patch to occur a little before the hardcore season. So if there's a meta shakeup, it hasn't been solved before people get going in the new league. I'm gonna go back and say stretch goal. But again, the meta shakeup was planned to happen regardless of hardcore existing. The part he was talking about is timing of the release in relation to when hardcore will be running and the fact we weren't all one big update as opposed to spread out in multiple small patches over a course of months. It doesn't change the amount of new system features released each year. It just addresses the release cadence to account for periods of time where it would be detrimental to one of our game environments to introduce system shakeups. Hardcore. Obviously, if they still need to make small patches or hot fixes, they will do that.
Yeah.
And then someone asked why can't change the hardcore league server simply be separated from other servers. And he said they're doing none of the currently previewed features are meant to be exclusive to hardcore server. None of the features currently being previewed were created, quote, for hardcore. They do, however, have changes for hardcore 2 season planned. These changes are not being previewed at the moment. These changes, which aren't character build related, will be active only on the hardcore server and not the rest of them.
Yeah, and that everything in the preview is designed and intended for all DDO servers.
Right. So I just want to make sure we got that part out there.
Absolutely. And it's an important thing to focus on to make sure that, it's not just for hardcore.
Yeah.
These are whole game changes. Right before we talk about everyone's favorite change, the ranged combat changes.
Oh boy.
Okay. So a couple things about it. So as hardcore approaches, there's gonna be they want to change how people build and play their characters, which is important, and so they want to shake up builds and strategies, and it makes sense to align game-wide build changes with the new release seasons, as we just talked about, which is why they're also making adjustments to Knight of the Chalice and two-handed fighting. But then the process is also adjusting and identifying and adjusting overperforming builds and archetypes. So with the range changes, they talk about a couple key points. So to start out, is the inquisitive balance where it needs to be? And their answer is no. In evaluating play data, it becomes clear that it is too strong and that they iterated over changes and they want to make adjustments that hit a number of different angles. Then our crossbow styles, like Great, Dual, and Repeater, balance where they need to be with relative to other crossbow styles, because there's multiple different crossbow styles. And the answer is no. Inquisitive is much stronger, and Great Crossbow is a little higher than they would like it. And then our crossbows balance relative to other range styles. And the context of crossbows versus bows, they said they're happy with repeaters, but that Great and Dual wheeled crossbows are too high. And then they say bows are too low. And that ranged weapon combat, there is ranged weapon combat balance where it needs to be. And they say that in context of range versus melee, there are issues with ranged access to easy AoE on hit, as well as a lack of incentive to focus on single targets. And on top of that, they're making adjustments to make it so that archers' focus is better for single targets, improve precise shot, has a cost to it, and that there's few melee changes to let melees get into combat a little bit quicker. As far as bows, they recognize that they need to make adjustments to bows because of some of the adjustments to the general ranged combat. However, Archer's focus is being a buff for bows, and then there's also bow buffs in Deepwood Stalker, as well as potentially some other buffs in this update. And that they're not finished, but they do want to make sure bows feel competitive compared to the other ranged combat styles. So they want to make bows good, and they believe that Inquisitive is overperforming. That being said, the changes. So improved precise shot is now going to reduce range damage by 20% while active. So you only deal 80% of your damage while it's turned on, but you still shoot all targets.
So something that's important to note about this too is they specifically said that this is not related to Inquisitive, that it's related to the idea that this is what they were talking about, where they don't like the idea that the range people get really easy access to AoE damage without a cost.
Yeah. If I was playing melee and I had a button I could press that lets me hit all of the people in front of me instead of one, I would press it all the time.
Yeah.
And so this is an adjustment made with that in mind.
And
Archer's focus has been sorry, go ahead.
I was probably this is a change that should have happened years and years and years ago.
This should have been in the game probably to start.
Yeah, it's one of the hard things about balancing range is because of this, because improved precise shot says I can hit a bunch of things with one arrow and do lots of damage, and that in and of itself has led to so many other balance problems when it comes to range, especially when you consider the fact that range generally aren't getting hit as much as melee.
Absolutely. Archer's focus has been redesigned, so now instead of it being a ability where it used to, while you stood still, you would gain Archer's focus stacks, so which give you range power when you hit enemies. It has been changed to now once per second when you hit a foe with a ranged weapon, you gain a stack of Archer's focus, which gives you +3 confidence bonus to range power for 6 seconds. That can stack up to 15 times by hitting the same target. Attacking a different target will reset the effect. It is important to note that with this, Archer's focus has been redesigned such that you can move around now.
Yay!
So, which is nice. It's something to consider to you, like that you will likely use a lot during the leveling process before you get improved precise shot. And on top of that, this has also been changed so that archers may use many shot at the same time as archer's focus, which they could not do before, which is a major buff.
Yeah, so between those two things, your AoE damage is going down, but your single focus damage is going up.
Exactly. Rapid reload now increases the reload speed of great crossbows, dual light crossbows, and dual heavy crossbows by less than before. Neat typo there. They're actually
please note that it's dual.
Yes, dual, not single. If you want to know the actual adjustments to attack speed, the feat in game now tells you the exact percentage adjustment on all the attack speeds.
I think they said that great crossbow got about 5% slower, and I don't remember what the dual crossbows got more slower.
Yeah.
I don't know what the number is.
It's about like 20% or something like that.
Sounds right.
It's written right there, 20%, yeah.
Yeah. So Endless Fusillade and No Holds Barred now require a crossbow to be equipped in order to activate. I guess they never thought that would be a problem.
It always should have.
And Endless Fusillade and No Holds Barred now play a reload animation on activation before the effect starts. So you basically load your endless crossbow bolt or crossbow bolts into your thing, and then you fire it. So it has a bit of an animation. And then there's new feats. So the simple thrown weapon expertise and multitude of missiles, which we talked about, which is for the thrown weapons already, which is going to help them out. Ranger specific adjustment. So rangers have two things to start. They have heavy draw, which was like power attack, but for bows. It no longer reduces your attack, which is really nice. And it gives a +1 competence bonus to critical multiplier to longbows and short bows while toggled on. This does not stack with shadow arrows from Arcane Archer, but if you didn't go into Arcane Archer, this means you can be a pure bow build as a Deepwood Stalker, which is nice. And on top of that, Strikes Like Lightning, which is a tier 5 enhancement that gave double shot, now also gives 10% increased ranged alacrity with longbows and short bows, while you do not have improved precise shot enabled. So it's a bump on your single target damage if you're playing as a ranger with bows. And then finally, the specific inquisitive adjustment. Get ready. Dual crossbow style now only gives 66% of your double shot. Inquisitive Law dice now scale 150% on range power instead of 200%, and Improved Law and Greater Law in the Inquisitive now grant 1 Law die instead of 2. Overall, this is a very conservative adjustment to Inquisitive on the raw damage side of things from the range power, the law dice, and the double shot. It's like it's not nothing, but it's probably only going to affect maybe 12% of your damage.
Yeah,
But
I don't think Inquisitive is out of the scene.
yeah,
I think it's still a viable option.
I would, from talking to some people, it sounds like it's still the number one DPS thing, even after the Fusillade, the Rapid Reload, and the Inquisitive, the specific changes. So you can definitely 100% still play Inquisitive. It's probably still the best ranged combat style, but it is now not just like 30% above the next best thing, which was a bit absurd. But yeah, so those are the adjustments to range combat. They did say a couple different things. So, so they said like, obviously about Archer's focus, can you still standing still and not using many shots? So they took out the standing still restriction and then the many shot restriction, so you can play around with many shot at the same time. They said about the adjustments to bows, they said that they don't have them for U45, but likely later this year.
I think actually
Although
they later said that it's probably they're trying to fast track some changes.
yeah, that's what I've heard. And then what if you switch targets to heal someone or cast a spell? The casting a spell doesn't interrupt the stacks, although it's only 6 seconds, so you got to be careful on that one. And then it says that Rapid Reload now changes the reload speed, and they specifically said Great Crossbows is down by 5%, and Dual Crossbows is down by about 20%. And then Rapid Reload adjusts every crossbow style individually, whereas Dual Crossbows boost is now much lower than it used to be. And then finally, to be very clear, the change to improve precise shot does not specifically have to do with Inquisitive overperforming. It was a result of evaluating the way that ranged weapon users interact with overall build meta and especially melees. So it is the change to improve precise shot is a melee to range change, and specifically in the terms of melee to range change. So making comparisons between this and spellcasters that you might see doing stuff is not accurate because spellcasters are balanced differently than melee and ranged. It's as melee to ranged and how they feel.
All right, I think let's cruise through the two-handed fighting changes and then give absolute short shrift to. Well, we'll just mention right now there is update 45 named Loot. They didn't actually list it out. You had to go into the game to find it. But we're not going to talk too much about that. And we're also going to
skip over it.
Yeah, we're also not really going to talk about Epic Catacombs and Delara's revamp. Other than to say they did some work to make that experience of Catacombs a lot nicer.
Yeah, Catacombs is a nicer looking place. And the dungeon's cool. Delirious is the same.
They redid the area, right, to make it less up and down, I heard.
Yep, the whole adventure zone is shorter, and the quest line is more direct.
They added the Jamba Juice.
All right, let's knock out two-handed fighting, and then we'll close out the show here.
Okay, so two-handed fighting. The basic adjustment is that they're replacing glancing blows with strike through. So while wielding a two-handed weapon or a bastard sword or dwarven axe in your main hand with the shield or rune armor nothing in your offhand, your attacks can strike through. When your attacks strike through, every attack has a chance to hit an additional target. By default, players have 20% strike through chance, and you cannot strike through while moving. If your strike through is over 100%, you are guaranteed to hit a second target, and you will have a chance to hit a third. So by default, you can only strike through while standing still. So you have a two-hander on.
Currently true of glancing blows.
Yes, exactly. You cannot glancing blow while moving as well. So now the combat style feats, two-handed fighting, improved two-handed fighting, greater, and perfect all give you 20% increased strike through chance. So if you have all 4 feats, you get 100% strike through chance, hitting 2 guys every time you swing your weapon.
And the first feat, like it does now with glancing blows, gives you strike through while moving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Greater two-handed fighting has also been adjusted, so now your ability score bonus to damage, instead of being 1.5 times while using a two-handed weapon, which is how it used to scale, is now 2 times while using a two-handed weapon, which is pretty good.
Yeah, it's a nice boost. It's like single weapon fighting. Like from the second one up, you start getting more percentage of your attack stat or damage stat onto your damage. It's a really nice boost when you don't have 2 weapons or 2 crossbows.
It makes sense to add that in. So that's specifically for the two-handed fighting. So glancing blows are gone, and it's replaced entirely by strike through. Druids, their bears had glancing blows. Now bears will strike through instead, as long as they're not in a defensive stance. This is not the nature defensive stance from the bear tree is not a defensive stance because you can use it while raging. So you can still strike through as long as you're not
Oh,
prevented from
that's
raging as
good.
a bear. Um, so you can strike through while moving in bear form by default. You do not need the two-handed fighting feats. Um, Dire Bear allows you to, or has an additional 20% strike through chance, giving you a total of 40% strike through. And then the natural fighting feat line used to give glancing blow damage for bears, but now it gives 15% strike through chance per copy. So bears will be able to get a total of 85% strike through chance on their attacks.
Without having to take the two-handed fighting line, which doesn't function in animal forms anyways.
Exactly, it doesn't
Yeah.
work in animal forms. And then the cleric feat, greater domain of destruction, gives you strike through chance when it used to give glancing blow bonus. As far as the enhancements go, anything that used to give uh, glancing blow damage is in most cases giving strike through chance in a 1-to-1 ratio. So artificers hand and a half training gives 2% strike through chance. Barbarian is getting angry arms and mad munitions giving strike through chance. Their Vorpal buff is giving strike through chance. The only major changes in strike through is that Ranger Dance of Death is now going to work off of strike through, and strike through has an inherent cap of 200%, which means you can only hit 3 targets total. So now Dance of Death is going to be doing it 3 targets or 200% strike through chance for during the duration, and it has a cooldown of 30 seconds. Important note: they have made heard from the player base and are making adjustments accordingly. So apparently, Strike Through has already, or Dance of Death has already received a second change that we'll need to wait for Lemania 2 to see on that one. Rogue used to have their follow through capstone ability, which allowed them to hit 2 targets with their quarterstaff after they tumbled. Now it is just 25% strike through chance, since if you have all the feats, you'll already have hitting 2 targets as a rogue ability. And then the racial enhancements, Dwarven War Axe training or Dwarven Axe training now grants strike through chance while using a Dwarven Axe all throughout the tree. On top of that, at the tier 4, it not only does it give you 10% strike through chance, but you can also strike through while moving while using a Dwarven War Axe if you didn't take the two-handed fighting feat line. Fury of the Wild, all the stuff that gave extra glancing blow damage, gives strike through chance. Unbridled Fury, the big kill everybody for 30 seconds ability, gives you 100% strike through chance. And one against many gives strike through chance instead of glancing blow damage as its filigree set bonus. And then their conclusion: strike through will help give two-handed fighting its own unique niche as an AoE focused melee thing.
I know one of the things that they talked about was, or a couple things they talked about is these extra hits will have a chance to do critical, like have criticals, and will just have the proccing stuff, so you don't have like a separate chance for that. I think.
Yeah, so the extra hits are literally just extra hits. Imagine
Right.
you just hit the monster. So anything that you apply, if you have double strikes, if you have critical strikes, if you used an attack that, like, let's just say it does an additional effect. So you used a two-handed weapon and you used an attack that has plus 5W on it. Both of the hits will have the plus 5W. If you use anything with a debuff or a stun, it only works on things that have the basic attack animation, just like glancing blows. So if you try to trip somebody, you'll notice your character does a little bit of a spin and a leg sweep. That doesn't glancing blow. That doesn't strike through. It has to use the basic attack animation.
The other thing they said is it's not their intent to reduce single target damage, because with glancing blows, you would actually glancing blow the thing you were hitting in the
Yes,
first
so
place.
you are losing a bit damage.
So they are working to iterate on that to either lessen that or take that away. They're not intending to reduce your damage.
Yep, I know that between now and Lemania 2, there are, because there is a current decrease in the damage, they are making more adjustments to the style to increase to lower that gap.
Yep.
And then one of the reasons about the Dance of Death is that Tempests have one of the strongest single targets in the game, and then also you just press a button and it's also the strongest AoE too. so they wanted to adjust that. And then so
It
in
was
shifting
really beautiful for Aspar Scourge.
oh, it's beautiful, man. So in shifting AoE towards two-handed fighting, two weapons fighting, they want 2-weapon fighting to be better at single target damage and two-handed fighting to be better at AoE damage. And so they're
Which
making
has kind
adjustments
of always been
to
the
fix
case. They're just trying to do a better job of it.
yeah, to make it like more pronounced.
The one thing I kind of like about this in a stealth way is right now if you jump in with two-handed fighter, right, your glancing blow hits everything, right? And
Yeah.
then everything gets mad at you. Now it's going to be a couple of the things that are going to get mad at me, so hopefully I'll live a little longer.
Which is nice. Playing through this, I tested a bit on Lemania. It feels so good. It's like night
That's good
and
to hear.
day. Like
It's great.
I played it in a little bit in Heroics, and then I also played it in Epics. And in Heroics, Cleave is still nice, but you don't really need to take like Cleave and Great Cleave. But man, once you hit Epics, you'd never Cleave. You just hit monsters, and everything is getting ripped apart. It is
Nice.
amazing.
I
Huge change.
I think this is great. I like it. It shows me that the future, because like everyone's been complaining for about certain mechanics for so long, and I feel like they're finally making that change to make this game feel right. But it's not going to happen overnight. You know what I mean? They probably have to do it over Litsa, but I don't think this is going to be. This is the outlining of the Mona Lisa.
Sure.
There's still shading and coloring and all this to come through, and I really like where this is going. I can't wait to see the next updates with the continuing functionality for the bows and stuff. I want to see what their plan is to put every single fighting style and technique into its unique contribution to the meta.
I actually suggested on the forums that the penalty to improve precise shot could lend for some interesting choices of like how maybe being able to reduce that a little bit. So like if what would it look like if there was an epic feat that you could, reduce or do 5% more damage with improved precise shot on.
Oh yeah,
Like
I
that.
would love
Or
that.
so it has
Epic,
a feat choice which can change how you do things up in epics, right?
oh
Or
yeah, epic
something,
feats are a graveyard, man. I would love more
yeah.
options in there.
Or even like
Yeah.
you could do things like with specific weapons too, right? Like maybe Deepwood Stalker could eat like its 2, 4, and 6 cores could like reduce that damage by 2% with bows only, right? So there's some interesting things that they could do there too to make that one to lessen the sting, but also do a little bit of bouncing with bows and stuff. So, but I think it hurts a little bit, right? Like it's losing 20% of your damage with improved precise shot. It's you're gonna do less. But I do appreciate, and I am kind of looking forward to the idea that improved precise shot versus Archer's focus is a meaningful choice.
I mean, as is in the meta now, I do switch between what I'm fighting, but I kind of feel like reducing the damage 20%. For me, it makes sense. Like, how is an arrow? I know this is a weird thing to say in the world that's like it's magic, but like, how does an arrow hit like through 4 to 5 guys and still have the same oomph as it would to first guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. My headcanon adjustment would have been it does 100% damage to the first target and then 20% less damage to each subsequent target.
That would
So
have been a really nice trade-off, actually. That
I,
version.
I just don't know if it's doable with the video
Yeah.
game code.
Yeah. It's always a thing, though, right? But hey, we'll get through all these changes. We've had big nerfs in the past to different things, and we're still playing the game. And I enjoy playing the game, so
Absolutely.
well, thanks, guys. Anything else you want to mention really quick before we close out the show here? I know it's kind of a long show, but I kind of want to get all this out in one shot.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to stop making these patches bigger every time. They need to do less.
Well, these are the ones that there's a lot of stuff here, right? And they've already said that we're going to be putting these balance changes in bigger groups.
Yeah.
So there was a lot here, and there's a lot of information to go over. So, but special thanks to Strimtom for doing the reading today.
Yeah.
Do appreciate that a lot. And Strimtom, plug your stuff, man.
Hey, I'm Strimtom. You can catch me on twitch.tv soon to be 3 days a week because I'm quitting full-time live streaming to get a real human job again for personal reasons. But I'm still streaming 3 days a week and also I'm still making YouTube videos every week, so you can catch me there, Strimtom, on all forms everywhere. Strimtom.
And Nimvind?
Hey, I'm Nimvind Singer. You can find me on YouTube as Nimvind Singer and on Twitch as Nimvind. I also my guild is doing teaching raids. Catch that out in the forums or check it out with Voodoo Spice, my guild leader. And remember, this isn't the end. This is a new beginning. Just be patient.
And we'll be excited to see what comes out in the second one, right? Like there were some great points that were brought up, and they're iterating on it, and they do make changes. Thanks to Sandy Some Games for making DDO and making it fun, and for weathering the intense vitriol that they've had to with some of the changes that they've
Oh
proposed.
man, the number of
Yeah.
closed threads. Holy moly.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like if you've got critical feedback, that's fine. But leave the personal stuff out of it. It has no place there. Soapbox off. Thanks to Wizards of the Coast and Decidebreakers for hosting the podcast. You can find out more stuff for DDOCast at our website, DDOCast.com. We can get the past shows, show notes, all that fun stuff. Yeah, if you got a question or a comment, something you'd like to hear us answer on the show or anything like that, leave a comment or you can email us at DDOcast@gmail.com. So may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.